Okay, we may be up.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes, I see live on Beast of War.
Oh, okay, cool. We figured it out. All right.
Whew.
Alrighty. That was annoying. Alrighty. Let me go ahead and shut this down. There's always something, folks. Always something. But we have figured it out. Okay, cool. We are live. Okay, quick, because science teacher, give us a sound test, please. Both for me, the sound effects, and then also for Dylan, if you can give us a quick sound test.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks.
Okay, so far she hears me fine, and the sound effects are not too loud. And then, were you able to hear Dylan a second ago, Jen, as well? Yes, Dylan is fine. Question mark, question mark. She got your spelling right on the first try this time. See? Progress.
Oh, very good.
We're getting there. We're getting there, folks. Okay. Apologies for being a few minutes late, everybody. Welcome, but we are now live. And it's time for another episode of Sitrep Podcast. Today we're not only on YouTube and Twitch, as always. I believe we're also on Facebook, although I wouldn't know. I'm going to go ahead and say that, yes, we were on Facebook. But we're also on Beasts of War. Thanks very much, Beasts of War team, especially Warren, for helping us get that straightened out. This is actually kind of cool. This is, I think, the first time I've streamed live on straight into Beasts of War, so this is epic. Okay, guys. So, super fast. What we're doing today, obviously, is May 10th, 2020. The date is somewhat significant for World War II buffs because it marks the 80th anniversary of what the Germans called Case Yellow. Most early war plans for the Germans had a rather simple, not all of them, but many of them, had a very simple kind of a color attached to them. Fall Weiss, or Case White, was the invasion of Poland. Case Yellow and later on Case Red were the two stages of the invasion of France. Case Blue would be the big second attack in 1942 that went into the Soviet Union, for the second year of that war, and so on. So, very colorful bunch, some of those early war Germans. Their tanks were so great that they wanted to put lots of color into their plans because there were none on their tanks. That was the limit of my humor for the day. I apologize to everybody. But what we're talking about here is May 10th, 1940. Okay, this is the invasion, the Great Blitzkrieg of the West. This is when you say the word Blitzkrieg, this is usually what people are talking about. This is a date in history where the Germans attacked pretty much four nations at once. They invaded the Netherlands, they invaded Belgium, Luxembourg. They technically invaded. That operation didn't last very long, and of course they went into France. They would actually wind up engaging another army, of course the British Expeditionary Force, in northern France, and that went about as well as everybody remembers. And as a result, we would eventually get to Dunkirk, where the British Expeditionary Force got sort of sliced off from most of the rest of the French armies in the south and pushed up against the Channel coast, and they were forced clean off the continent. They wouldn't be back for about 4.5 years. So, or for over 4 years. So yeah, this was a big one. It's early war. The war is May 10th, 1940. So the war has not the war in Europe has not even been going on for a full year yet. We've so far had the invasion of Poland, then the phony war, so they called it, about 6 months of peace, or not peace, but like kind of a lull on the Western Front, and then followed by the April 9th invasions of Denmark and Norway, and then on May 10th. Before the fighting in Norway was even completely settled, the Germans launched this. This was Manstein's plan. This was Guderian in the lead. This is where Rommel, as a lowly division commander, first cut his teeth. This, in many ways, is the Germans at their high mark. This isn't as big as the Third Reich would get. That would come later in 1942, geographically speaking. But as far as just absolute dominance over their enemies, this is where the Germans really were at the top of their game. They would pretty much never stand higher than they stood at this moment, exactly 80 years ago today. So I am joined today by my friend Dylan. Hello, Dylan. How are you doing?
Hey, Jim. I'm doing good.
Okay. Thanks very much for coming by and getting up at a weird hour. He's over in Queensland, Australia, everybody. So for him, it's like 7 o'clock in the morning over there. On a Monday, no less. And nevertheless, he's up to chuck some dice with us in Panzerleader. First of all, he deserves a medal for that. He's playing Panzerleader with Oriskany. Anybody who puts up with me to play Panzerleader is always going to be a friend of mine. There's been a few. There's been more than a few actually. But it's always a real pleasure to dust off this classic. This is the kind of game they just don't make anymore, folks. Because I don't blame them. Nobody really has the patience for it. But in 1969, 1970, when this game first came out, was a different time. Alrighty, so how did that get to be? Oops. I'm gonna have to do a quick little bit of. Oh, that's what happened. Okay, I got a little bit of a issue here. Give me 2 seconds, everyone. So I'll tell you what. While I'm fixing this, Dylan, how are you doing over there in Australia? I saw your most recent video on another Historian Wargamer YouTube channel. We are looking at some of these rock bands that sing about the Peninsula Campaign in the Napoleonic Wars. Yeah,
probably the most niche thing I could possibly think of doing.
Yeah, it's a heavy metal band that sings about the Peninsula Napoleonic Campaign. How do you get to that point in life is what I want to know. How does that become your thing?
So I'm just going through and listening to their songs and then talking about them. This not the music itself, because I know nothing about music, but just the history behind them. And they're really good historically. They're not like a lot of bands out there. No, it's really good. So I did like 4 or 5 in a row. I was just having so much fun. So that's my next few weeks covered.
That's cool that people will keep history alive in pretty much any way they can. Some of us do it with wargaming. Some of us do it with heavy metal rock music. Hey, whatever works. They came
that's
for
it.
The rock music, they stay for the history, right?
No, that's exactly right. Yeah, movies, all sorts of stuff. I think I've got all of Waterloo up there. They got me a strike, but I shall go on. I'm not worried.
I've seen all of Waterloo on there on other channels. It's a fan edit, but the fan edit is literally like 3% of the video. It's like 1 minute out of the 3 hour. Yeah, but I guess he gets away with it, or he doesn't care. I've seen people put up the entire movie on there. He sort of like in a weird way almost like reinserts like deleted scenes, with, like some sound effects.
Most of it's Mercer. Most of it's just Mercer. Like they cut Mercer out for some reason, but Mercer's very important for the Waterloo because he kept a journal, and we know all about his artillery battery. But they cut him out of the movie for some reason because people weren't interested in it.
Strange. Okay, so I think I got this thing kind of fixed here. So let's go through what we're doing today here for Case Yellow. Okay, so here is the large map for Case Yellow. And what we're going to be looking at here is, hopefully... Okay, so here's Case Yellow. Obviously we have the Netherlands up here in the north, we have Belgium, we have Germany, and we have France. Luxembourg is also kind of tucked in here, between everybody. Okay, so obviously this is, and obviously here's the English Channel. So this is the general layout of the campaign. Okay, in World War I, Germany's big plan was what they called the von Schlieffen plan, right? And von Schlieffen plan was, let's invade neutral Holland. And, it was Belgium. I'm sorry, I totally got that wrong. Let's invade Belgium and do this big hook. First of all, let me clean up this map a little bit. And do this big hook out of the north, right through neutral Belgium, and come down here, outflank the bulk of the French army, that's mostly down here in the south, and get to Paris. That was the von Schlieffen plan in like half a paragraph. Obviously, it was a lot more complicated than that, but that's the basic plan of it. And the Germans were ready to do this again. 1939, early 1940, they were getting ready to set up this plan where they're going to go through the same invasion corridors. They're going to do the exact same thing that they did in 1914. Didn't work in 1914. And the Germans' response to that on the general staff was, yeah, but we have tanks this time, and we have Stukas. and we're totally going to pull it off. And
We have Rommel.
well, Rommel. I'll get on that soapbox a little bit later on. But for now, we have, what you meant to say was we have Manstein, and we have Kleist, and we have the real guys who won this campaign, not disciplinary problem jackasses like Rommel. But anyway, different, I apologize. I said I wasn't going to get on the soapbox. I got on anyway. I'm sorry. This was the plan. And, I mean, I hate to say Hitler was right, but a broken clock is right twice a day. But he would raise his hand and he'd be like, hello, I was in... First of all, he thought that his experience in the trenches as a friggin' Lance Corporal qualified him to dictate to the General Staff. But he was right, but for the wrong reasons. He was like, we did this before, and it didn't work. What makes you think it's going to work? Yes, it's going to work this time. A Corps commander that fought in the Polish campaign, von Manstein, I think he was commanding 30th Corps at the time, said, I have another plan that is pretty much reverses this, and everyone kind of laughed at him and said, you're playing silly. It never made it to Hitler because the generals between von Manstein and Hitler said, your plan is insane. You're going to open up both. One of the big advantages of the Schlieffen plan is that as you turn to the as you turn out of the north here, you only have to worry about one open flank. Okay.
Yep.
There's no real open flank over here. So that was kind of the benefit, or what was supposed to be the benefit of the plan. Also, Belgium, northern Belgium anyway, up here through Brussels, is kind of open. You don't want to go through Holland. It's way too watery. They can open up a couple dikes and flood the country. You don't want to send tanks through Holland. Yeah. And you don't want to go south because there's this little thing called the Ardenne Forest down here. And of course, once you get to where the Luxembourg border meets France, you get this thing called, well, it's marked here on the map already, this thick blue band. This is the Maginot Line. You don't want to go through the front door there. So there's only like really one choice. You have to go through that northern corridor between Holland and the northern shoulder of the Ardenne Forest. And this is what this is the conventional artillery and staff officer of the German, general staff, the guys who fought in World War I. This is what they thought. And they said, I know it sounds repetitive. I know we're basically doing the Force Awakens here with our tanks, but we have to kind of do the same thing over again. And Manstein was like, no, we have to do something radically different. One of the weirdest accidents in World War II happened when a German communications plane got lost. Its bearings got mixed up. So I think sometime in the late winter, early spring of 1940, got lost, ran out of fuel, or got shot down. I can't remember what happened. It wound up crashing, and it had a complete copy of this plan, and it fell straight into Allied hands. It was on many desks in Paris and London by the end of that afternoon. And the Germans said, well, there goes that plan. We obviously can't do that. Do we have anything else? And von Manstein kind of cleared his throat in the back of the room, and he says, I have this other plan that people have been telling me to shut up about all winter. Can we please take a look at this? The difference is this time Hitler got a look at it, and his plan was called the Sickle Cut Plan. And he says, we're not going to worry about Holland, because Holland's underwater. We're not going to worry about this open corridor from Antwerp down to Brussels. This is pretty much, almost the old Waterloo battlefields, because it's, nice and rolling and open. Tanks can go straight through there. You'll notice how the rivers go. At first, the rivers are kind of on your side. Your columns are kind of going through these gaps in the river, so you don't have to cross too many rivers. And there's no big forest in your way. There's no mountains in your way. You're fine. The problem is that's exactly where the British, Belgians, and French are expecting you to come, and they did have a pretty good plan for that called the Deal Plan, and we'll get into that in a second. Manstein's idea was, okay, we can't go through Holland, we don't want to go in the front door, we don't want to go through the Maginot Line. What's left? We can go through the Ardenne Forest. And everyone's told me that was crazy, says Manstein, but trust me, the terrain is hellish. But because the terrain is hellish, no one's expecting you to come there. You're trading terrain for its complete surprise. And he gambled that surprise would be worth more than terrain. The advantage you would get in surprise would be worth more than the penalty that you would get from terrain. Or I'm sorry, that would be worth, from the penalty that you get from terrain. So he said, okay, we're going to go the other way. Instead of making this big right hook out of the north toward Paris, we're going to do a left hook. Like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to split off the British Expeditionary Force, the Belgian Army, and a good slice of the French Army from Paris and the rest of the Allied forces here in the south. We're going to catch them in a pocket, and we're going to squeeze, and we're going to squeeze, and we're going to squeeze. And sure enough, it worked. They went straight through there, and I think it was Rommel and Guderian reached Abbeville. Here, they reached Calais, they reached Boulogne, and they reached these channel ports, and what they pretty much did was they set up a pocket. So this was the new front line. The Germans took Holland in about 4 days, and they smashed this corridor through France. Here we see Arras, we see all these famous 1940 battlefields. Cambrai, where de Gaulle launched some of his counterattacks. I can't see it at the moment. It may not be on this map. But Crécy is on here. An old 13th century, 1300s battlefield that the French lost again at, is here. And then we have battles but we have places where the Germans reach the coast at Abbeville, Boulogne, and Calais. And that causes this big pocket. And then this pocket gets squeezed, and then this pocket gets squeezed, and it gets squeezed, and it gets squeezed until there's nothing left but this little town called Dunkirk. And we've all seen the movie. We all know what happened there. This is the battle. The battle we're going to do today is part of the setup that would eventually lead to Dunkirk. So that's pretty much the big picture sort of a thing there. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. Oops. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. There you go. So zooming into the Ardenne forest, we see some names that look awfully familiar. Hoffelais, if I'm pronouncing that right, Bastogne, Neufachâteau. Hey, this is the Battle of the Bulge. Yes, they struck through the exact same corridor 4 years later in the Battle of the Bulge. And surprise, surprise, the Allies were caught off guard again. But this was the first time that the Germans came through this corridor, and the Allies were really surprised. The Belgians had a couple of units sort of guarding these passes through this forest. The plan was that the Belgians would hold or delay the Germans as much as they could in the event of an invasion. There's no way the Belgians knew there was no way they could stop them. We're going to delay them as much as we can. So here's the German border at the beginning of the campaign. They went through Luxembourg, I think, in like 45 minutes. Luxembourg, like, just completely imploded. But, I mean, come on. It's like the size of a county in the U.S. And they also, Luxembourg was in the crosshairs. I'm not trying to offend anybody from Luxembourg. You were in the crosshairs of the biggest German force, Army Group A. I mean, look at some of these names: Kleist, List, Weiss. These guys, Panzer Group Kleist. This was the guy that would lead the biggest army group or the biggest Panzer group into Russia next year. This is the guy who, a lot of the guys that we like to think about and we like to admire: Rommel, Guderian, everybody else, von Bulge. Kleist was the guy that most of them eventually worked for. Von Kleist was no joke. For some reason, he's not often in the history books. But anyway, this little yellow rectangle here is the scaled location of our battlefield today. So what we're looking at is the Germans had 3 basic army groups. This is Army Group A. This is the main, obviously, like I explained before, this is the main attack punch that went straight through this corridor. It had a couple infantry armies, 12th and 16th, with 2nd in reserve. But what it had in the front was this army here with a little Panzer symbol on it, okay? This is Panzer Group Kleist. This is made up of 2 Panzer Corps. 19th was Guderian's. I honestly can't remember the first one. It might have been 15th, but let me not say that because I might get it wrong. Reinhardt was in command. I know that because it says so right in front of me. But the guy that I like to read about is Guderian. So Guderian had the 19th Panzer Corps, and he was kind of out in front. He had 3 Panzer divisions in his corps, 1st, 2nd, and 10th. He had the Grossdeutschland motorized infantry regiment that would later grow on into the Grossdeutschland Panzer Grenadier Division, one of the most elite Wehrmacht non-SS Panzer divisions that the war would see. And this is kind of where a lot of those men cut their teeth here in these woods. So Guderian's going to go ahead and smash through this corridor. The Belgians were trying to slow them down as much as they could. They'd never stop them. They knew that. This was not only the biggest part of the German army, but the most well-equipped. This was the most heavily supported. These had the best men, the most tanks. There are a total of 10 German Panzer divisions in the entire German army at the time, and 7 of them are right here between Panzer Corps, Motorized Corps, Reinhardt, and Guderian. So the Germans are, this is really the, I think the German term is Schwerpunkt, if I'm pronouncing that correct. It's literally like the heavy point, or like the heavy punching point. This is the tip of the knuckle, where the punch is really coming in. So the Belgians are going to try and slow them down long enough for the French to come up in what they called the deal plan. And they were going to, as the Belgians were falling back, the French would be coming up, and they would meet together along one of these river lines, and they would try to present some sort of unified defense against the Germans. Obviously it didn't work for a whole bunch of reasons we won't get into now. The short answer is the German artillery and the Air Force, the infamous Stuka, bombed all these bridges, bombed all these rail lines, and of course the French army had a lot of operational and strategic level problems. They fought fine tactically, but their operational command was a mess, and strategically they were even worse. And they just couldn't get these huge formations across hundreds of miles of terrain organized and moving fast enough in a coordinated manner. So they didn't get there until day 2 or day 3. Forget all that, because guess what we're doing? We're totally historically cheating here, and we're going to play with some French on day 1 nevertheless. So we've done a little bit of research. Again, it's just a game, so we don't want to get super technical into it. Dutch JAFO, hello, welcome to the stream. We have what the Belgian forces look like here in the southern part of the Ardenne. This is the Chasseurs, oh god, I'm not even going to try and pronounce this. Chasseurs Ardenne. I'm probably not even coming close there.
Chasseurs d'Ardenne, yeah.
Thank you, cool, thank you. I'm going to just go ahead and, whenever there's something's French or Belgian to say, I'm just going to go over that to Dylan.
Oh, please don't.
It's better than mine, trust me. My French is even worse than my English accent, and we've had enough of that. So here we have this Belgian division, the 1st Ardenne Division, which, I mean, looking at this map, or looking at this chart here, I'm seeing a ridiculous lack of support element. There's no artillery on here. There's barely any anti-tank guns on here. This is what was there. This was supposed to be a light cavalry formation. This is going to be one of these small blue cavalry symbols we see here at La Roche and down here in the southern part of the Ardenne. This southern one here, this is the 1st Ardenne Division. And this is what they had. It's over here on the right. It's not much. Again, we're going to cheat a little bit, and we're going to include the French 5th DLC, Light Cavalry Division. I'm not even going to try and pronounce how you say that in French. DLC stands for Division Light, or whatever light is in French.
Légère would be light or something, yeah.
It's, yeah. So this is what they've got. It's pretty pathetic. It doesn't have any of the cool Samoa S-35s, some of the awesome Char B-1s that we would see later on in the invasion. But it does have some tanks. I use that word very, very loosely. And this is what was there. We're putting them up against part of 1st Panzer Division. And, you know, we know what was there. Namely, 1st Panzer Regiment, 1st Panzer Brigade. So those are our forces. We are, again, sort of playing a little bit loose with the history. We're going to say that the deal plan worked a lot better than it did historically, and the French were able to reach this Belgian withdrawing line on day 1. So, anyway, super fast. This has already been up on some of our other project threads on Tabletop, so I won't go through this in too much detail, but these are the forces. We've got 1, 2, 3. Let me get my little drawing tool out here. Oh, you can't really see that. Let me try something else here. Okay, we've got 1, we've got 2, we've got 3 companies of Belgian infantry. Every piece in Panzer Leader, I mean, I'm sure Dylan already knows this, but for people in the, oh, Mr. Limburger, how you doing? I did not recognize your new name. Or I should say your Twitch name. Cool. Welcome to the stream, sir. So, yeah, everything in this game is a platoon. So every piece on this map is basically a bolt-action army. It's between 50 and 60 men. It's 5 or 6 vehicles, between 4 and 5 tanks, if it's a tank platoon, or a battery of 4 to 6 guns. So to kind of give you the scale, the idea of the scale of these battles here. So we got 3 companies. That's a full battalion of Belgian infantry with a mixed load of transport, trucks and wagons. Again, everything is 5, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 5. That's 30 trucks and 30 wagons. Engineer platoon, mortars, motorcycles, a headquarters element. Bicycles, couriers, believe it or not, you do need those in this game sometimes. We do have some 47mm anti-tank guns. The organizational chart didn't put them in there, but I don't want to massacre the Dylan too badly here. Again, we are playing a little loose with the history here. And some 13mm, these are interesting, these 13mm anti-aircraft guns. These are a type of Maxim, or the MG08 from World War I. The Germans were playing with at the very, very end of World War I. And we are confirmed that the Belgians did have some of these left over in their army. So I'll go ahead and zoom out that counter a little bit. TUF stands for Tank und Flugzeug, if I'm even coming close to that. The Germans didn't call tanks Panzers yet in World War I. They were brand new, and they were still calling them tanks, because that's what the British called them, and there's a whole story behind that, obviously. So Tanks und Flugzeug, this was their anti-tank machine gun. It's basically a German 50 cal. Technically a 50 cal is 12.7mm. 13mm machine guns times 2, and then there's like 4 or 5 of those double 13mm anti-aircraft guns in this battery. Again, some stuff to carry it around with, some Belgian cavalry, and some of these T-13s. This is an old Vickers tank with one of those Czechoslovakian 47mm anti-tank guns bolted on the back, like literally with some bolts and some welding and some baling wire. I mean, they literally just kind of stacked it on there, and they tried to use it as a tank destroyer. Slow with the movement of 6, very vulnerable with a defense of 3. But I tell you what, that's 6A3, that's the attack factor, that's the class, and that's the range. That's not too bad for early war Panzer Leader. Those guns are deceptively dangerous. So the Belgians are not completely toothless in this, just mostly. Again, we also are going to cheat a little bit with the history, and we're going to say that the French arrived on day 1. Cavalry, 25mm anti-tank guns, Hotchkiss anti-tank guns, rifles, more anti-tank guns, the standard Stokes Moore that almost everybody was using, these tiny little AMR 35s. These are basically tiny little tankettes, again with that same Hotchkiss 25mm anti-tank gun in there. It's pretty much the French equivalent of the German Mark II, is kind of what that is, or the French attempt at a Mark II. Lots of trucks. The heaviest Allied tanks on the table are these Hotchkiss H-35s. Not the best by any stretch of the imagination, even for the French at the time. But again, that's what was there, and we're already kind of cheating. And, motorcycles, armored cars, things like that. A lot of armies had motorcycles back in the day. I'm not sure what the deal is with that. Everyone likes a motorcycle, I guess. It was a fast way to get motorized transport for couriers and things like that without actually giving them a full-blown vehicle. And, of course, we got the Germans. The Germans are bereft of artillery, which is weird. Germans always had 10.5s and 15.0s at least. There are like a small battery of... I'll find them later. There is a small battery of infantry guns in here, but no big indirect fire howitzers. The Stukas get all the credit for the German successes earlier in the war, and the Panzers, the hell with all that. What counts are infantry, engineers, and artillery. I didn't put artillery in this game because, again, I'm not trying to turn this into a complete rout. And number 2, indirect artillery fire in Panzer Leader gets very involved. They kind of make you do it the way that a real artillery mission works. You have to call it in a turn in advance. You have to call in a grid reference. You write it down on a sheet of paper. You put it under the board. And then next turn, you reveal it to the other player, and you really hope that there's actually somebody there, because the opponents had a whole movement phase between then. So artillery is not easy in Panzer Leader. It's the most powerful weapon in the game, but it is time consuming, and it takes a lot of getting used to. So, because we're just trying to run a fun stream for today, and again, this is also Dylan's first time at Panzer Leader, to my knowledge, we are trying to keep it kind of trimmed down here. So, here are the Belgians set up. Again, every hex in this game is about 150 meters. Okay, Rasmus has joined us. Hello. A more modern version of Panzer Leader. Yes, this is Rasmus Leroy Jenkins. Who was like, I can play Panzer Leader. I have three platoons of M1s. I'm going to drive them into the middle of an Iraqi regiment. It was great. That was a great game, Rasmus. I'm not trying to make fun with you. I'm just, that was a great moment. You would not want to do that with these early World War II tanks, that's for damn sure. Yeah, that was, but then again, if you're ever going to pull that, M1 Abrams or Challengers are totally the tanks to do that with. As evidenced by the result of that game, because as crazy as that move was, he did kind of get away with it. So yeah, H-35s aren't the worst. They're not the S-35 or the French Char B1. The French Char B is the big, heavy tank. I think I have an actual one ready down here in my little warehouse. These are the two tanks. When people say, oh, French tanks in World War II, especially early war, were actually better than most German tanks, what they're talking about are these two, the Samoa S-35 and the Char B1. Look at those numbers. For early war tanks, those are damn good. This game does sort of cut them down a little bit, because the big crippling weakness that these tanks did have that isn't really reflected in these four numbers: no radio, except for the commander's vehicle. You had that Russian signal flag bullshit going on, and one-man turrets. So the commander also
one-man turret killed them.
Yeah, one had to load the gun and had to fire the gun, work the radio, work the signal flags. It was absurd. The Char B did have a hull-mounted 75mm assault howitzer down there, almost like the later American Grant would. You had to aim the whole tank in order to aim the gun. The hydraulic system in the Char B1 suspension was just good enough where you could really do it if you had an experienced driver. The driver was basically your gunner at that point. Or at least you're aiming for the gunner. You know, he would lay the gun by positioning the vehicle. And you just had to have a really, really experienced driver. And if you did, that Char B1 could be dangerous. But again, that gun is low to the ground, so it has a very limited range, and that gun is not very accurate and doesn't have a really wide play. The counters do take all this into account by reducing these numbers by a certain amount. These numbers are a little lower than they should be if you just go by what gun was in the turret and what kind of ammunition it was firing. That's how they get around that without cluttering up the system with another 17 different rules. So yeah, we have the Belgians set up in a defense belt here. The Germans are going to be coming in on Luxembourg. This town of Martelang, if I'm even saying that right, is pretty much the border between Luxembourg and Belgium. So these first couple rows of hexes are technically Luxembourg. And then we actually are now into Belgium. This is right on the border. And the Germans are going to try and take these 5 objective hexes that are marked by these little targeting icons. We have one here in the town, one on this road junction, one in this town, and one at this bridge. Those are the 5 objective hexes in play. The Germans have to take all 5 of them by the end of turn 10, which, spoilers, we will not reach today, because we will be here until 4 in the morning. But this is how these kind of historical scenarios are set up. The Germans are going to curb stomp these poor Belgians. Even with the French help that they don't historically deserve, or whatever, that isn't historically valid, they're going to get tanned big time. However, can they slow the Germans down just long enough to where they don't have all 5 of these objective hexes by the end of turn 10? Survey says yes. It's going to sound crazy, especially when I start pointing to these 6 Stuka airstrikes waiting off the table. But this game, I think, I've been playing Panzer Leader for 30 years now, and this game is balanced against the Germans. Or I should say the victory conditions are balanced against the Germans. Again, because the Germans don't have that off-board artillery. So just to kind of get things moving along a little bit, I know we've had quite a bit of discussion. I have gone ahead and started the game. So the Germans are on the attack. They get turn 1. They come on first. The turn sequence is down here. An abbreviated copy of the turn sequence. You call in new artillery, which we don't have in this game, so we can ignore that. Resolve last turn's artillery. Again, we're not playing with artillery, so don't worry about that. I mean, like off-board indirect fire artillery. There are still artillery pieces, anti-tank guns, infantry guns, small mortars on the table. That stuff is still here, but no big off-board howitzers. Airstrikes and direct fire. Okay, well, the Germans were not even on the table yet at the beginning of turn 1, so we could pretty much skip all that. So far the Germans have taken their movement phase, and that's pretty much it. They've taken their movement phase. These gray arrows sort of showed the path that they took to their current locations, and that more or less closes out the German turn 1. So this game is already halfway through turn 1. And now we go to Belgian turn 1. So here's where I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dylan. Yeah, no real artillery, Rasmus is correct. Yeah, so on board little stuff, anti-tank guns, some 37mm, stuff like that. Anti-aircraft guns. The Belgians have some pretty good 47mm artillery pieces. Anti-tank guns, but no big howitzers. Yeah, so I'm going to turn over to Dylan here, and we're going to go ahead and get started. We can talk him through his first turn ever of Panzer Leader, and we are going to go ahead and get started with some live play. So, awesome. Mr. Dillon. Again, there's no artillery phase here. Unfortunately, the Belgian Air Force is mysteriously absent. There really isn't a Belgian Air Force by like minute 30 of this war. So we're going to go ahead and start with direct fire. So we can start up in the north and work our way down. So this game is a little bit like Battlefield Revolution, where you shoot first and then you move, and anything that shoots is not going to move.
Yep.
So here is the top part of the map. And any questions you've got, I am here to help. So just to kind of get us started here, up here, there really isn't any fire. So I paid. So these vehicles moved at 10. Okay, so super fast. Because again, not everyone in the chat knows this. I'm going to go ahead and expand the tank here. The 4 numbers and what they actually mean. Fire. This is the weapon. This is the everything here is a platoon. This is a Mark I platoons, German Panzer Mark I, Panzerkampfwagen Mark I. This is the platoon's attack factor. This is what it shoots with. I is the attack class. There's infantry. There's A for armor piercing. There's M for mortars. There's H for howitzers, and AA for anti-aircraft. They all have their own little deviation in the rules. The range, number of hexes it can shoot. 4 is the defense. That's how much armor plating it has, how well it can hide, so on and so forth, how big the unit is, and so on. And then 8 is the movement factor. How many hexes it can move, subject to terrain rules. So I'll get rid of all that, and then I will put that tank back where it belongs. Pretty please, there we go. Alright, so these guys with a movement rate of 10 came on. They started here in 3202. Double movement rate along the road. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oops, hold on, what did I do? I did that wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's how. Ooh, I think I moved too far. Hold on. Whoa. 1. Oh, that's how. 2. That stupid arrow's in the way. That road cuts down to the south. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. These brownish bands here are slope hexes. This is me trying to get on high ground. So if I zoom in a little bit, you guys probably already noticed this. About all these areas of the map that are sort of surrounded by these brownish bands here, and the area inside them is a lighter color. Those are obviously patches of high ground. So I had to climb the slope. It's triple movement rate to move through a slope, at least for vehicles. And that's why it took me longer to get up there. But these are fast. These are German fast armored cars and Mark II battle tanks. So these are the absolute fastest units that the Germans have on the table. Look at this one 8-rod here. 8 rods we had at the Bolt Action Boot Camp. I think it's a movement rate of 16 for crying out loud. So if anything, he's half-stepping it, so he doesn't outrun everybody else. But anyway, that was how they got here. The C stands for carry. Obviously, wagons carry no guns on their own, so that's 0 attack. Class C for carrying unit, 0 range. And then we have a Belgian rifle platoon and a machine gun section. There's probably about 80 men in this hex. And they sadly only carry I-class weapons. I-class weapons cannot attack armored vehicles, no matter what. There is something called a close assault, and we'll get into that when we get to your movement phase, if you want. But there was no direct fire there. Here, not so much. We probably do have some... oh, actually, maybe not. These Belgians are really under-equipped. But again, there's a lot of weapons here, a lot of German tanks here, a lot of infantry that can do a close assault, if you want. Or you can stay in your buildings, and you can wait for me to come in there and try and dig you out. It's up to you. I was pretty careful not to expose the Germans to any immediate direct fire here. That's why I didn't move as fast as I could have. But down here, again, you've got infantry class weapons that can't really, they're within range and you can shoot, but technically they just kind of ping off the armor. I class weapons cannot legally attack an A class target.
Yep.
Okay, so spotting rules in Panzer Leader.
Okay.
Right now, all your guys are in bushes or in towns. So I literally don't know. I can't just shoot at you from where I'm sitting unless I'm adjacent to you. So the only Belgian unit on this table I actually see are these two. I mean, I know where they all are because they're on the map, and also German reconnaissance planes, and we see like glints of binoculars and, you know, so on and so forth. Probably some nervous machine gun fire coming out of some of these hexes. But within game terms, you're not allowed to attack a unit in cover until you have them spotted. You have them spotted when they shoot at you, or you're adjacent to them. That's why these tanks got so ballsy. They literally just rolled right up on this town. That's a town hex, a wooden town hex. They rolled right up on that town and they knocked on the front door. Kind of a stupid move for the German tanks, but they have to do it because they have to get you guys spotted. However, the Germans have infantry guns that they're trying to unload from this half-track back here. 75mm assault howitzer. They're unloading engineers, and they're unloading an entire Schützen company of German motorized infantry. They're setting up for an assault. That's why those tanks are up there. They're up there to spot, and once they spot, they're going to normally call in artillery. There's no artillery in this game. They might call in some Stukas, or they're definitely going to spot for all these guys back here. So, I don't want to talk the entire time. Yeah, Limburger says yikes in the stream. Yeah, like I said, these Germans are going to go over these Belgians like a speed bump. That's kind of by design. If the Belgians can hold on long enough, and they have the advantage of terrain, they've got town hexes, they've got high ground, and they've got woods. I have to go in there and dig him out. It's going to take time. The function of this game is time. And again, the French are going to be coming in, you know, I don't really know. Let's just call it turn 3. That the French will come in, and, you know, we'll see what happens there. But I honestly don't know if you have that much of a fire phase.
There's a mortar there, but I don't know if it's worth anything there.
Yeah, the mortar could have... mortars are able to shoot at tanks if they want, but... okay, so the way mortars work is they have a pretty pathetic attack factor, 3. However, the thing about mortars and howitzers is that they affect everything in the hex equally. This is one of the things that changed out of original Panzer Leader. So big concentrations of units are actually pretty vulnerable to that kind of fire. You probably won't kill anything. You might pin something down, but the odds are pretty well against it. Mortars are not armor-piercing weapons, so they divide in half against armor-piercing targets. So you'd be shooting at 1.5. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. Rounds up to 2. 2 versus 5 is 1 to 3. 1 to 3. 1 to 3. You'd make 3 1 to 3 attacks, applying your adjusted attack against my defense. It's a mortar class weapon. It affects everything in the hex, but it's basically going to be a sprinkling of shrapnel against German tanks. You might pin one down, but I wouldn't count on it. And also, if you did that, you would reveal the position of that mortar. Right now, that mortar is under cover. I'm not allowed to shoot at it.
Yep. Yeah, I think I'll hold back with that. I don't see anything else they can shoot.
Okay. I was pretty careful when I was expecting the German move not to expose it to any immediate fire. So if we go past Belgian fire phase and then we go into Belgian movement phase, here it finally gets... First of all, thanks everybody for your patience. I know we've already been streaming for almost an hour here before we finally get to blow something up. But now we're into the movement phase. Vehicles first. So, do you want to move any vehicles? You do have some vehicles. You can also load, yeah, you can load vehicles with troops, and there's a process for that. Especially if they start off already in the same hex. You do have some hexes where there's vehicles in the hex with passenger units. You have some vehicles down here. And of course we have a little bit of cavalry there, but we'll get to the cavalry later because they're technically not a vehicle. But technically, yeah, now is when vehicles move. You want to evacuate those wagons that are about to get slammed by German armored cars up there in the north. There's all kinds of movement. And again, some of my units are vulnerable to close assault tactics. This is pretty much infantry assaulting tanks, if you want.
Okay, yeah, the first thing I'm going to do is get pretty much all the wagons out of there.
Okay, we're talking about up here to the north?
Yep, they'll just go straight southwest. I think it's what, 4404.
Alright, cool, so that's one. In order to expose yourself to opportunity fire, it's not quite like Valor and Victory, where the second you move an enemy line of sight, boom, you have opportunity fire. It's not like that. You have to move at least a quarter of your movement rate to be vulnerable to opportunity fire. Because again, this isn't a tank. This is 5 tanks. There's 3 counters in there. There's 15 vehicles in there. That's a lot of radio chatter. For one guy to spot some wagons and say, Achtung, Achtung, Belgian, wagons are making a run for it. There's a little bit of time, and by the time that gets to throw out all the right people, a quarter of the turn is gone. So, his movement rate is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, because it costs, whenever you're going through a brown slope hex, it's triple movement, 5. The good news is, by the time you get down into the slope hex, you're below the plateau, so to speak. You're below the level of the hilltop. So these armored cars and light panzers that are on top of the hill can't see you by the time you exceed a quarter of your movement. 1 is less than a quarter of 5. So I technically can't, I see you, but not enough guys have been alerted yet to actually take a fire phase in opportunity fire. Plunk. By the time you take your, well, now it's 4, 5, it's 2, 3, 4 movement rate points. Now you're invisible because you're already down below the crest of that slope. No vehicle, that includes wagon, can ever move through a tree hex side. So Panzer Leader's kind of weird, as opposed to other games like Valor and Victory, where trees are not measured by hexes, they're measured by hex sides. So movement for a vehicle is impossible, ever, between, say, hex 4404 and 4403, because you're moving through a tree line. So when it comes to trees, you have to think in terms of tree lines rather than trees, like tree hexes. Okay. So the good news is there's not a movement penalty to move into a tree hex. The bad news is that vehicle now, if he wants to move south, he has to go to 4405 and then over here. He can't move straight down. One of the big advantages for units like infantry and cavalry, they ignore that. Obviously, infantry and cavalry can ride through woods. Alright, so the other wagon will do the same thing.
Yep.
Alright, cool. These guys obviously don't have opportunity for opportunity fire, so, okay. Any other movement up there in the north?
There's 2 small infantry units there.
Yeah, they can cat attack if they want to the north. So the movement rate, one of the things I changed in a risking the edition Panzer Leader is all infantry unit gets a movement of 2. I literally won't get into it because it's like a 20-minute conversation. Panzer Leader, Panzer Blitz, Arab Israeli Wars, these games came out in the 70s. They were some of the first games of their kind. They are beautiful, golden icons of a bygone age. They are also tragically flawed. So out of the box, again, if anyone ever goes out on eBay and finds a box of Panzer Leader, takes it out and starts to play it and says, oh my god, Oriskin actually recommended this game, he's on crack. There are some problems with especially the early editions of this game, so there are some changes. But what this means for this cat attack is he has a movement rate of 2. He can move 2 hexes, again, he gets to ignore green hex sides, and they can attack. It's going to be nasty, because there's a lot of German guns up there, and they do get to shoot as you're coming in. So, it's possible, but it's up to you.
No, I think I'll sit tight in the north. I think I'll leave them where they are.
Okay.
Yep.
The other, just to kind of keep the conversation going here, the other thing that can happen is, okay, so yeah, keeping them safe right now is obviously an option. Here's the reason to attack. If they don't attack now, they will probably never attack, because those Panzers are going to streak straight past them at those movement rates. And this is not a 15 or 20 millimeter miniature game. This is a game where kilometers matter. These guys are going to be here next turn, And thank you for that objective, X.
Okay. Yeah,
Now, I'm not trying to goad you into it. There's a case to be made for either option. This is why Oriskany loves Panzer Leader. These are the kind of questions the game forces you to make. And it shows what the real strengths and weaknesses of what these armies really were back in the day. I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Part of me wants to head... Oh, no, that's fine. Part of me wants to head south and try and cut off that... Or do some damage to that big column of trucks there, but I think assaulting your tanks is probably the smartest thing to do right now.
That's another good move. They could do that. They'll be... Right now, they're incredible. This column of trucks... This is what you're talking about back here?
Yep.
This is 100... Okay, I'm going to paint a picture. This is 150 meters of wooded Belgian road that is jam-packed with 15 German lorries with German infantry falling out the back. I mean, it is a dream machine gunner's target right now. When you are loaded inside a vehicle, you get the vehicle's defense rate. And these trucks have a defense rating of 1, and they're non-armored targets. If these guys were here, the war's over. Because they're going to do a cat attack down here. There's no opportunity fire allowed from outside of vehicles. You got 80 crazy Belgians running out of the woods, and they're going to do a Teutoburg forest on this German army here packed up on this road. And that's going to be a grand total of 6 versus 3. There's only 3 trucks in there. That's going to be 2-to-1 on a cat attack. You automatically go up to 3-to-1, and you subtract 2 from the roll. Oh no, you don't do that because you don't have any engineers in there. But you do subtract 2 from the roll. They're all going to blow up, and when the trucks blow up, the troops blow up with them. That would be a nightmare. Needless to say, that's why the Germans did not do that.
Yep.
So by the time those 2 platoons would get down there, they're going to be out of those trucks. Getting out of those trucks is going to take 2 turns because I have all kinds of overstacking problems or whatever. It would be annoying, and it may cause me to leave a platoon or 2 of those German motorized infantry back there, which tactically is going to be sacrificing 2 platoons of Belgian infantry, but operationally it's going to slow the Germans down a little bit. Any little bit of friction you can throw into the German plan. You're basically the rebels against the Empire. You're gonna lose. This is the Battle of Hof, 1940. You're not stopping those walkers. But every little pebble you can throw in my boot is gonna add up, and it's gonna count.
Yep. I think I'll do that assault, and we'll see how that works.
Assault to the north? Right? Okay, so okay, cool, let's zoom in. Because now we're out of Panzer Leader, and we're going into either Flames of War or Bolt Action. So 150 meters, I can't remember what that works out to. I think every hex in this table, every hex in this table works out to about a Bolt Action table. So you can go this way and attack these 3, or you can go this way and attack these 3. Or technically,
I think I'll go after
you can do 1, 2, and attack just those 2, or you can go 1, 2, and try and attack. So yeah, you've got options here.
I think I'll go for the triple 2s.
This is Dylan's first Panzer Leader test. We're going to see which option he takes. There's a right answer and a wrong answer here.
I think I'll go for the triple 2s and try and take out those.
So there's 2 stacks of triple 2s. So you're gonna close assault 1 hex, either this hex or this hex.
Oh, so I'll go for 4001.
Okay. Okay, here's what happens. If you go into 4002 and then attack straight north, you expose yourself to opportunity fire from both of these hexes. And that's going to be the last you hear of those 2 platoons, and they will probably never even get to launch their counterattack. Okay? That's probably going to happen anyway. But if you go this way, and I try to shoot opportunity fire, it's going through a green hex side. I can't see you.
Okay.
You're screened from half the opportunity fire. Now, this stack is tougher. You're up against 12 instead of 9. But either way, you have 6 in attack factor. Either way, it's going to come out to 1 to 2 odds. So game-wise, it doesn't really make a difference.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go through the forest there.
Okay, cool. And again, I'm going to go ahead and spread this out a little bit. Another thing that makes this hex a little bit easier to attack, the front column is tougher. There's more armored vehicles up there, or the vehicles up there have more armor. 2 platoons of tanks, 1 platoon of armored cars. But the real killer here is, not killer, the thing that might not be a killer or whatever, the factor that might further save you, H. Panzer Leader is a game of detail. So we've got 2 platoons of Mark II tanks that have 20 millimeter or 2 centimeter armor-piercing guns, or guns loaded with armor-piercing ammunition. They get halved versus non-armored targets. You're a non-armored target. So that 2 actually gets read as a 1, not a 2.
Okay.
This 2, however, is a howitzer class weapon. And when you're firing a howitzer class weapon at less than half of its range, it doubles. So that 2 gets read as a 4. So you're up against 4, 1, and 1 is 6. Up here we had 2 armored cars. That would have been 4 plus 4 plus 1. You would have been up against 8 instead of 6. And again, these guys can't see you at all. So if you were going up here, you would have been up against 16. You went this way, you're up against 6. Did I say that right?
Okay.
6 and 8 is 14. Yeah, 14 versus 6.
14.
Cool. Alright, cool. So he goes up this way, hooray for Belgium, and we're going to go ahead and launch a counterattack. Or a cat attack. Cat attack stands for close assault tactics. You hear that in Panzer Leader, and Panzer Blitz, and Airbus Relay Wars all the time. Tanks are surprisingly susceptible to hordes of infantry jumping out of woods. So let's see if we can kill some of these guys. I'm going to go ahead and try and pin down that. Rifle platoon. I probably should aim at the machine gun group, but you know what? I'm going to go ahead and be crazy here. Also, I want the stream to kind of get going. So we calculated that I had 4, 1, and 1. I have 6 total. I'm going to go ahead and take a swing at the rifle platoon. Actually, no, you know what? I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to try and shoot. If I teach you the wrong way to play, you're going to pick up bad habits, and it's not going to go well. I'm going to try and shoot at this machine gun platoon anyway. So I see these 2 groups running out of the woods towards me. 2-second rules point: you're not allowed to cat attack with machine guns if you don't have rifle platoon with you. But anyway, you do. If you can ever cat attack with engineers, that's a huge bonus because they have all kinds of satchel charges and torpedoes and God knows what else. So I get to try and pin down one of these 2 units. Obviously I want to pin down this unit. It has a lower defense factor and a higher attack factor. If I can pin them down, he now only has 2 against my 6. That attack is still legal. No attack is ever allowed at less than 1 to 4. The troops literally get back on the radio and say, "Sir, go fuck yourself." We're not doing it. It's literally illegal. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and try to attack that heavy machine gun team. I'm going to go ahead and do that because it doesn't matter. No matter what, I'm attacking at 1-to-1 odds. I have 6 total. Again, we went through the math before. I can either attack 6 or can I attack 4. Either way, all division is rounded in the defender's favor. It's going to be 1-to-1. 6 versus 6 and 6 versus 4 is the same thing in Panzer Leader. It's 1-to-1. You get a +1 for woods because you're in woods. I have to add 1 to my roll. And we're going to go ahead and roll the dice here super fast. Oh, shit. And here's the webcam, which I should have had going before. It's a 6 anyway. This is an old 1970s Ariskina game where the higher the roll, the worse the roll. So, yeah, a 1 is a killer roll. A 6 is terrible. You always roll 1d6 in Panzer Leader. Panzer Leader is a very dice-simple game. So that opportunity fire fired off. It missed. And basically they had paint in all their guns, so nothing happened. Now your attack goes in. And cool. So now we have a grand total of cat attacks are deceptively simple. We have 6 total attack factors, 4 plus 6, against my total is 12. No, sorry, 9. No, it is 12. 5 plus 5 plus 2. So it's 6 versus 12. It's 1-to-2 odds. Here is the chart. This is what you have to roll. The odds don't look good, but bear with me for a second. This is just the normal, the entire game runs off of this CRT, Combat Results Table, or affectionately known as the kill chart. This is where all the dying happens in Panzer Leader. You divide your attack versus the enemy's defense. You come up with a result. You round off in favor of the defender, and then you go ahead and take a shot. You're at 1-2, which is pretty terrible. You have 6 total attack versus my 12 total defense. When you're shooting at a stack of enemy units, you can pick out individual targets in that stack, but when you assault or overrun a hex, you gotta take the whole hex. You can't run into a hex, point at those Germans and say, I'm gonna blow you up. You Germans wait patiently over there to die. Alright, this isn't a Bruce Lee Kung Fu movie. I'll get to you in just a second. You have to attack the whole hex at once. So it's 1-2.
Yep.
That sounds pretty bad. However, it is a close assault attack. You always get to subtract 2 from your roll. An X is a kill. Again, you always want to roll low on Panzer Leader. So all those dice, everybody, that are terrible for you in other games, break them out for Panzer Leader, you will dominate. Oh my god. I have, my dad is like texting me like 900 times here, so let me go ahead and mute that. I'll get to you in a second, dude. Alright, so you're at 1-2 odds. An X is a kill. A D means dispersed. That's basically a pin. Most other games call it some sort of a pin or disordered or whatever. The double D is if the unit is already dispersed or pinned and you score a double D, it's now killed. Is how that works. So it's pretty much 3 results. It's a D, a double D, an X, or a miss. So actually there's 4 results. So roll 1d6 as low as you can and subtract 2 from the result.
4. 4 goes down to a 2.
4 goes down to a 2. You barely made it, but you'll notice here that we're on the 1-2 column. Go away, OBS. What are you doing with that? It's so annoying. A little bit of OBS pops up through my display driver like that. He rolled a 4, everybody, but he gets to subtract 2 from his roll. His adjusted result is a 2. He gets a D. That's dispersed. That whole stack is pinned down. And that is pretty much going to be their turn next turn. For German turn 2, they have to rally, and if they fail to rally, they're going to be stuck again. Also, if they fail to rally, you can counterattack them again next turn. And now your counterattack is going to be subtract 3 from the result, not subtract 2. And again, double D will kill you. So yeah, that actually gets pretty. That was a pretty successful counterattack. This northernmost column of German assault has just been pretty badly blunted, or at least slowed down. It might give him time to get this cavalry up here, over here from the west, and do something. Cavalry absurdly
Absolutely.
vulnerable. Note that defense factor. Well, again, this is World War II defense, which is not about how much armor you wear; it's about how well you can hide. You're a 6-foot tall man standing on top of a 6-foot tall horse. It's not easy to hide cavalry, and the horse is just as vulnerable as the person is. So, cavalry is absurdly vulnerable in this game. Surprisingly useful on the Eastern Front. Okay, so any other movement?
Yep, I'll move the cavalry.
Okay.
4602, 4502.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it pretty much just so 4602. They kind of come down like this.
Oh no, go up. Sorry, to northeast.
They go northeast. Okay,
Yep,
so
so
what hex do you want to wind up in here?
4302.
Okay, cool. Cool. They're on a slope, but they are adjacent to a hex side, so they do have wood cover there. 1, 2, 3. Again, 4, 5, 6. You can do that because you're going up a slope. But cavalry is surprisingly fast. Yeah, those German tanks are in a fair amount of trouble. The legend or myth that we hear out of Poland where Polish lancers supposedly charged German tanks. First of all, complete nonsense, but not really. This is almost exactly what happened. German armored cars, just like those, were already engaged against Polish infantry. I think it was a town rather than woods. And then they got hit by the side by Polish cavalry. And it was actually pretty successful. That's where the myth comes from. It wasn't really tanks, it was armored cars. So again, there are some German tanks in here, but were almost sort
Yeah,
of.
and they didn't have lancers.
Well,
The Polish cavalry
yeah.
didn't have lancers.
I think they called them lancers, but they didn't. They weren't carrying.
Yeah, they had them
lances.
for parades. But, yeah.
But again, that's the Western media for you. Just because you call a unit X, like the 14th Polish Lancers, doesn't mean that they're carrying lances. They're cavalry with rifles and mortars and machine guns, and they're not. But people hear lancers and they assume that they're charging them with lances because stupid. Okay, any other movement up here in the north?
Well, probably those trucks are probably just drive. Actually, no, I'll leave the trucks where they are. 2 rifle platoons. They're actually quite useful there as a reserve. I don't really want to assault with bicyclists, so...
Somewhere in the UK, Bruce Lee is laughing right now. He loves bicycles and Panzer Leader. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised once in a while. I was doing sea lion, obviously hypothetically, a sea lion in it was just this weird accident of statistics. German Fallschirmjägers were attacking like this dad's army, home reservists, home guard guys. Category D, bicycle troops, I mean the worst of the worst. Like 65-year-old men on bicycles, I mean basically. But the Fallschirmjägers did a force march. They failed the force march roll. They wound up getting dispersed. They tried to rally their morale aid, but they still rolled a 6. They somehow failed. Somebody else attacked them. One thing after another. I actually added it up. It came out to like 1 to like 960 with the odds against it. But those dad's army bicyclists close assaulted and wiped out an entire platoon of elite German Fallschirmjäger. It'll never happen again in all of the history of Panzer Leader, but once in a while it happens.
But I don't think it's going to happen today. So I don't think I've got any more movement in the center.
Okay. You do have what they call a motionless counterattack. It's a counterattack because you're already adjacent to the enemy. It does not require or does not expose you to opportunity fire. So you can do it pretty much for free. If you want to reinforce them with anybody, again, that's a much tougher stack. Those aren't armored cars up there. Those are Mark IVs.
Yeah.
If you want to support it with anything, those units will have to move, but then I get opportunity fire for that. But it's up to you.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth it to.
Either way, those Mark IVs are probably going to fire straight south into that hex. So at least the 2 guys in 4109 probably want to do something, even if it's only to retreat. But I don't think they want to just sit there. Word to the wise, you probably already saw this, but that is an objective hex behind it.
Yep.
That's why the Germans are coming so hard down that road.
Oh, actually, I got trucks there. Okay, so I'll move the trucks in 4110. I'll move the truck in 4110, just sort of out.
4110. Where are the? Okay. 4110 is here. Okay, so yep, that truck is unloaded. You can tell by whether. Okay, so if the truck is on top of the infantry unit, it's carrying it. If it's beneath it, it's unloaded. It just happens to be in the same hex. Cool. So okay, so where's he going?
He's just gonna go southwest, just down that road.
All right, so he gets on this road. That costs him 2 infantry points. So there's truck movement rate and then there's regular movement rate. Trucks are really slow off-road, but they move insanely fast on-road. So that costs him 2 points, but now that he's on the road, it's double movement rate, so that's 1, 2,
he'll end up in
3...
Just 4611, I think.
4. That costs him 1/3 of his movement.
Yeah.
He did that without breaking a sweat. He never got out of second gear when he made that move.
Yep.
All right.
And the truck with the rifleman headquarters and the rifleman engineers, they'll both end up in the same spot.
All right.
Sort of
Riflemen and
free me up a little bit there.
Riflemen and engineers. I don't see any other. Oh, these guys. Okay, cool. Yeah, they all pretty much do the same thing. No problem.
Yep. Then the Maxims will fall back into the.
See you for exactly like 1/10 of a second, but it's no way you spent a quarter of that movement rate in your line of sight. This flak wagon saw you for a split second, but again, you have to spend a quarter of your movement rate in continuous enemy line of sight in order to, or not line of sight, line of fire. No, line of sight, sorry. Continuous movement rate, I'm sorry, 1/4 of your movement rate continuously in enemy line of sight in order to be eligible to draw opportunity fire. So that was safe. The Germans saw you, but just for a second. Literally about 1 second. Out of a 6-minute turn.
Okay.
So apparently when I missed my, just to catch up on the chat super fast.
Yep.
So Limburger says too much German beer. I think this is when I missed my opportunity fire against your incoming Belgian close assault tactic. We are some that like, oh good, double D's. I thought you guys, okay, that's Jen and Rasmus having their own little conversation over there. I'll leave that to them. Rasmus, you better watch it. That's my girlfriend you're talking to. No, I'm just kidding. And yeah, modern cavalry does not have to have horses, exactly. Sounds like Phalanx is killing tanks in Civilization on PC. I've never really played Civilization. But infantry, even archaic infantry, even archaic units like cavalry can do well against early war tanks in exactly the right circumstances. You have to get the circumstances exactly right. And even then, it's going to be costly, it's going to be risky. It's definitely not the way you're supposed to do things, but once in a while you can definitely get lucky. Okay, Limburger, take it easy. Yeah, for you it's got to be like 11 o'clock at night, so take it easy. Thanks for stopping by. Alright, and you were saying something about your Maxim machine guns.
Oh, yeah, they'll fall back into the headquarters hex with the rifle squad there.
Maxim HMG, these guys?
Yep.
Okay, that's
Back with
legal.
the rifleman.
I thought for a second you meant these Maxim machine guns. No, they have a movement rate of 0, so they can't move without a truck. Okay, and their trucks just left.
Yep.
So as the trucks were driving away, all those men were like stuffing letters in their friends' pockets. You know, give this to my wife, because you were our ride out of here. And there's a lot of Germans coming down that road in great big scary tanks, and they're one of our trucks. So they don't have any illusions at this point. They can't exactly jump on the back of that motorcycle and drive away.
That rifle with the motorcycle will fall back with the AA guns.
Okay.
The motorcycle itself will go in with those riflemen engineers.
He's giving me a town hex. Cool. It's a wooden town hex as opposed to a concrete town hex. Obviously they have different colors. Wooden buildings, concrete buildings, and there's different rules for those. Obviously concrete buildings are much, much tougher. So yeah, he's giving up tough to defend hexes for easier to defend hexes.
And those bicyclists are just going to have to stand and fight tanks.
Now you can move through. Yeah, those two hexes right behind them are maximum stacked. You can move through any hex you want as long as you don't stop there.
Oh, okay.
It's not like there's a line of guys with their arms slings saying you can't drive down the street. You just aren't allowed to end your movement rate in that hex.
Okay, well then they'll end in the 4210. The bicycles will just sort of go back in that middle.
With the two wagons, or back here in this clearing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It does. Yeah, that works. Yep.
Okay.
That works.
Oh man, those German tanks were all ready to just cut loose at point blank range. And look what happened. The Belgians ran away. Now we have to attack again. I can't see them because they're in a town hex. I'm not adjacent, and there's a town hex between us. So, again, not a very dramatic move. But here's where I think Dylan may have snuck in a game of Pens Leader without my knowledge. Because now, on my turn, I have to pretty much repeat turn 1 and do this again. That he's still not going to be able to stop me, but it took a turn. Now that was going to happen anyway, but now he did it without losing any units. So this big battle that's going to take place on turn 3 now instead of turn 2 is going to cost me a little more, because he's got more units that he didn't lose defending Hex 4109. So he fell back out of these little farmhouses on the outskirts of the town into the big churches and big concrete and brick buildings here in the center of town. And we're going to have a street battle next turn is what it looks like. Okay, so I'll stop talking and let you finish up your movement. Any other movement in this town?
Okay. No, the town's pretty much safe.
All right, we got one more sector down here in the south, and then we'll look at your backfield.
Yes. That's interesting. I don't think I'll move anything down here. I think it's all sort of just delaying forces. So.
Okay. And then we have your backfield. You have some units further in the back. These T-13s can probably move around a little bit if they want. Or they certainly don't have to. These little tanks.
Yeah, I think I'll move them up into support the. Yeah, I'll move them to support the town.
Okay, so they're going to head up the road a little bit. They have a movement rate of 6, and they've started off on a road. So where are they going?
Okay. So it's double move on the road for them, is it?
For every hex except where the trucks are.
Okay.
Yeah, but don't worry about it. I'll just count that one. You probably have plenty of movement anyway to get where you want. But just so that we don't. Again, this is going to be on YouTube. People might call us out later. You get the double movement rate on a road as long as there are 2 or less units in the road. After that, you have to kind of pull off the shoulder and drive around them. You're still allowed to move through it. You just don't get the road bonus for that one hex.
Okay. They'll end up in 45-11. So
you have no problem with that. So just to go by the numbers, 1, 2, 3, and that would be technically 3.5 because now you're moving back into open road. He had to kind of pull off the road a little bit and duck around all these trucks that got piled up there. But a little bit of a traffic jam, he got through it, and again, 3.5 movement points out of 6, he made it there with no problem.
Cool.
All right. I think that's it, because you said you don't want to move anything in the south.
Nope.
All right, I think that completes turn 1. That only took an hour and a half. Oh, Panzer leader. Again, we're kind of explaining history, we're talking about the rules, we're keeping up with the chat. Panzer Leader is not a terribly fast game, but it's a little faster than this usually. Alright, so German turn 2. German turn 2 begins with calling artillery, nope. Calling last turn's artillery, nope. Airstrikes. I have 6 Stuka airstrikes. I'm going to go ahead and hold off on them for now, because I don't have too many targets that I can see. Outside of those 2 infantry units down there in the south, or up here in 4103.
Yep.
Which, by the way, well, no, actually we can't see them right now. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna leave those leave those Stukas alone for now. Cool. So I'll go straight to direct fire. Pinned down units cannot move. Or I'm sorry, pinned down or dispersed units cannot fire. Their attack is literally their attack is to rally. Rally,
yep.
Is their attack phase. So they're going to go ahead and try and rally. German armor in this game is specified, or I should say, the Germans in this game are morale B. Yes, this is the forward edge of the most elite German infantry or Panzer division in the Wehrmacht. It's only their second campaign. Most early war scenarios in Panzer Leader give the Germans a B, even though they're like 1st Panzer, Gross Deutschland, the SS Panzer Grenadier. They weren't Panzer Grenadiers yet, but the crack top line German units were still only really morale B. Belgians and French are morale C. So what that means is for people in the chat, that's the number I have to roll to try and rally them. So I'm going to go ahead and try to rally these 2. A B, if they're armored units, is a 1 through a 4. They're all armored units, so I'm going to turn on the webcam on time this time, and we're going to see what we get here. Armored car, the 8 rod on top, gets a 3. He successfully rallies. The armored car there's the Mark II platoon underneath that does not rally with a 6, and the last platoon of Mark IIs does not rally with a 6. I need new dice. Oh,
nice.
Yeah, that's actually not good. I think the Belgians are about to mount a bit of a last stand here. Okay. These guys can't see anything. They can't see these units yet because there's woods between them. They can't see these guys because there's woods between them, and they're also not adjacent. So right now, I can't attack with them. So I'll leave them alone for now. I might move them later. Down here, what do we got? Again, everybody pulled back deeper into the woods, back deeper into the town. I don't have any targets. We're just going to go ahead and charge in there. I think I'll address that in movement.
Yep.
Down here, yeah, it's all the same thing. Pretty much, we don't see anything. You're doing a very good job of staying under cover. And Panzer Leader in general, especially early war Panzer Leader, is a game much more about movement than combat or gunfire. That's why a lot of Panzer Leader players prefer early war. It's just there's more movement involved. On a 1944 battlefield, everything has an attack factor of 14, 15, 16, 20, and a range of 15 to 20, because everyone's got a 17 pounder or an 88. And you poke your head up out of these woods, and this clown way over here can blow you away. You'd be surprised how much movement doesn't happen in a 1944 game. In a 1940 game, when the ranges are all 2 and 3 and 4, it's like, go for it. I dare you to hit me. You're like literally dancing back and forth in front of enemy batteries going, yeah, you can't hit me because I'm 600 yards away. Alright, so now it's time for movement. Do I... If
I could just stuck out for 1 second, sorry Jim, I just got to really quickly go and...
Go ahead,
it'll be 1 minute.
I'm going to go ahead and start moving and just do some movement.
Okay, cool.
Change my mind, everybody. So his big advantages are terrain. Mine is movement. These German, they're all mechanized and they're freakishly fast. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, I could do all that. Stacking limit in Panzer Leader, Rasmus, is normally 4. Again, I've probably been talking too much in this stream already. There's a reason in this scenario it's limited to 3. There's like literally almost a half-hour conversation as to why. It's part of the general fixes that repair a lot of the inherent rules problems when Panzer Leader was first invented back in the day. I'll do the short version as I do all this ungrouping and whatever. The short version is Panzer Leader made some fundamental, I should say Panzer Blitz was the first edition of the game in 1970. Yes, this game is now 50 years old. This game is older than some of the wars that we used to recreate it with. I'm unloading some of these motorized infantry here. But they made some fundamental math mistakes when they were coming out with the game back in 1970. The kind of thing like, okay, we know how big a hex is, 250 meters. We know that, bring to front, 250 meters per hex, 6-minute turns. They looked up the maximum speed for the vehicles, and they worked out, they plugged that number into a simple equation that more or less gave them what the movement rate in the game should be. For 250 meter hexes, 6 minutes per turn, you can work out, the vehicle did 30 kilometers an hour back in the day. They can figure out pretty easily what the movement rate should be. The problem is, then they got to road movement, and they said, okay, you should get a bonus for moving on road. What should the road movement bonus be? Oh, I don't know. Let's call it, double. let's go ahead and say you get double movement on roads. That's pretty standard for a lot of games. Okay, cool. So they went with that. The problem is when they looked up in the historical records what the movement rate was for these old tanks, that was the road movement rate. And then for road movement rate in the game, they doubled that. What this kind of worked out to is that the game doubles everybody's movement rate. These tanks are moving around like helicopters or Abrams. They also kind of screwed up what the ranges should be, how powerful the weapons are at what distances. They're shooting like Challengers and Abrams, and they're moving like Abrams or Apaches. To the point where the game got very unrealistic. So a simple fix for that is, let's just pretend that these are not 150, or these are not 250 meter hexes. Let's pretend that they're 150 meter hexes. That fixes just about everything. Now the movement rates make sense. Now the ranges make sense. The weapons effectiveness chart makes sense. You know, the ranges are corrected because we've changed the scale of the game as far as how far the weapons can shoot. Two unfortunate side effects, well, really three. One was the artillery, but the artillery was already broken, so we already had to fix that. Number two, the hexes are now smaller. So let's change the stacking limit to 3 from 4, because the hexes are literally smaller, you know, as far as square, you know, yards in a certain hex. And all the infantry got a bump up, because the infantry movement, the rate they got right. But now that the hexes are about half the size, we wanted to double the movement rate of infantry as a result. And so now all infantry units, you'll notice, have a movement rate of 2 instead of 1. That started out as a rules correction, or a rules correction for a rules correction, you know. But it turned out to make the game really a lot more fun. Because in Panzer Leader, official Panzer Leader, if you buy it or whatever, if you look it up on sites like Imaginative Strategist or Greg'sPanzerBlitz.com, or, you know, sites like that, or Board Game Geek, you'll notice that all the rifle platoons and so on, they all move at 1. And the game gets kind of, it's not that much, it's still fun, but it's really tough to come up with a combined arms strategy when your infantry can never even come close to keeping up with any of your vehicles. And again, that's because they doubled all the vehicle movement rates. Yes, tanks are supposed to be faster than a walking man, but not that much. Holy crap. So by fixing that, the game became a lot more realistic. Integration of arms, infantry, artillery, mortars, airstrikes, etc., engineers, other battlefield support elements and assets, all that became much easier to integrate, and just the game was just, you know, pretty much improved a great deal. So that's why the stacking limit is 3. In official Panzer Leader, it's 4. That's the reason why we made that change. So this is pretty much a whole battalion of German motorized rifles, or motorized infantry, unloading all at once. Come on, pretty please. Don't slow down, Excel. Not now. I'm going to go ahead and unload this headquarters unit before he gets blown away. Okay, so, cool. Dylan's back. Like I said, I couldn't really move these guys because they only just rallied. This guy does have access to the turret mobility rule. He can move half if he wants, but if he does, he's going to kind of abandon those tanks there, so he's going to stay put where he is. That other company of German armor has pretty much flanked this whole... I had to go all the way around it, including down this slope, because I can't move through green hex sides. I pretty much came all the way around here and came up there. So now those cavalry are welcome to charge me if they want. They're trying to provide some kind of cover for their less fortunate comrades here in the north. Down here in the center, I've gone ahead and pushed into that town with my armor. My Mark 1s are in position to provide flanking support fire against those enemies. I have unloaded German rifle platoons and engineers ready to go. I couldn't do it as concisely or as neatly as I wanted because stacking limitations on that road. The column is going to get a little stretched out and disorganized. That's kind of by design. 75mm infantry guns, that's a dangerous little weapon right there. Don't be fooled by its low attack factor. And mortars have all unloaded. And now I'm going to go down here to the south and see what I can see. Alright, first thing I'm going to start doing, first of all, I'm going to ungroup all these stupid trucks, because this is getting annoying. And we had a question from Rasmus about stacking limitations. So we went through that whole rigmarole.
Okay, cool.
Because that is a good question, and there is an answer for it, but it's a little bit of a talk, and we did that. The short answer is the stacking limitations in this game are 3, but if you look up like official Panzer leader, it's a 4, and it's the reasons why that change was made that get a little involved. It's a lot of game design and historical research stuff. So this whole German Schützen company pretty much got drawn up on line in this tree line here.
Cool, cool. I'm
going to leave those anti-tank guns there for the moment. Oh, you got some armor coming up. So I'll move them up a little bit. Oops. Of course, as soon as I ungroup them is when I wish they were still grouped. Oh, my life. There we go. Alright, down here in the south. Let's get this show on the road. Do I even want to mess around with these guys, or am I going to do the Blitzkrieg thing and bypass? I'm going to bypass. Why even play around with this stuff? 1, 2, 3, 4. Stay out of range of these clowns. 5, 6. 7, 8, 9. I'm going up a slope that costs triple. 10. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can't climb that slope, so I'll stay there for now. He could never see that because he would be shooting through a green hex side.
Yep.
And what we're going for here, spoilers for everybody, is we're eventually going to try and clip. Okay, a vehicle is never, the rock repeats, never, any vehicle is ever allowed to cross the stream hex. So where the hell are these guys going? They can cross the stream hex on a bridge, or wait for it, a ford. There's a ford down here in 5309. I'm going for that ford, and I'm going for that objective X in that town. I'm hoping to take it on turn 3 or so, right about the time the French come on. So we might have a little bit of a small tank battle down here in the south for this objective X, probably a little bit near the end of today's stream. Because again, I don't think we're going to get to the end of this game today. Panzer Leader is just not that kind of game. It's the kind of, where if you want to run it on stream, it's the kind of game where you set up your audience and you play for like, a couple turns, just to kind of give people the idea of the game. These rifle platoons started off already unloaded. These trucks are going to get the hell out of the way. These guys have to pay double because they're off-road in their trucks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're going to stay there. Actually, they're going to stay further back because these guys can, believe it or not, reach them a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so yeah, these trucks are going to stay out of range of those infantry platoons. So, super fast, because the Germans have this ability as well. You'll notice that some rifle units and some machine gun units have a asterisk after their range factor. If a unit has an asterisk after its range factor, that's the 5 cm mortar or the 2-inch mortar that's in that platoon, and maybe some light or medium machine guns in that platoon. So it can't attack with its attack factor at ranges exceeding 2. That's why there's a 2 there. It has a range of 2. However, if it has that asterisk after a 2, it can attack out to double its range with 1/2 of its attack factor. So it has a 1. Actually, I will move those trucks down. It has a 1 out to 4 hexes. And this machine gun platoon can fire at 2 out to 4 hexes because they have that asterisk after their range factor of 2.
Okay.
So, word to the wise, technically, some of these trucks are now in range.
Okay. It's good to know.
Again, not making any suggestions, but your sergeants are yelling at you, "Sir, I can see him. Do I take a shot?" Now, you're the lieutenant.
Yeah,
it's up to you to say, whether now you can do it now. If you do so, that gives away your position because again, you're in woods, and right now I can't see you. The second you fire out of a hex, you're considered spotted.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about being spotted at this point.
Okay, because there are Stukas flying around. I'm just kind of saying, it won't be that big a deal in this game because again, the Germans don't have artillery, but in a more formal Panzer leader game, man, because now, okay, you go ahead and like even on your defensive fire or your opportunity fire, or later on in your regular fire phase, you take a shot, you blow up a truck. Okay, first of all, it's a pretty weak attack, but maybe you blow up a truck. This guy just saw that. Command unit. He's up there on that hill in those woods. He saw that, and he calls in on some 10.5s or some 15.0s or some Stukas or God knows what else. But again, we don't want people to get too bored on the stream. So he did spend a quarter of his movement rate, or you can take a shot when during your fire phase. It's totally up to you.
I'll take a shot now.
Okay, cool. So they're all 3. Truck sections are carrying a battery of Pak 36s. Those are 37mm anti-tank guns. Super small, super light, but nevertheless they're considered a target. They're towing. They're still limbered, so I get the truck's defense factor, which is only a 1, unarmored. So those I-class weapons can hit it. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can attack this one or this one. You'd have to attack him in this hex because once you get into this hex, you can't see him through that tree line.
Yep.
But you have 1 there and 2 there, because again, you're firing at extended range. So you have a grand total of 3. So it'll be 3 versus 1 if you wanted to take that shot.
Yeah, I'll take that shot.
Alright, roll as low as you can.
3 on 1 sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it's like 50-50 for a kill.
On the table helps. 2.
A 2 is a destroyed unit. We have a destroyed unit on the table, folks. Kaboom. Again, when you destroy a transport unit that is carrying a passenger vehicle, the passenger unit is technically it would be this guy. But it doesn't really matter. And I get to slap a big old spotted counter on there. And that was opportunity fire. You do not get to move or fire in your turn. Because you literally just took your turn. Cool. Alright. I just bought something with that. Okay, cool. And that will pretty much wrap up my movement, because everything else pretty much already moved. Okay, I've already done rallies, obviously. I have no close assaults yet. He said yet. Cool. That will wrap up turn 2. We go now to, for German turn 2, we go to Belgian turn 2. No artillery, no airstrikes, direct fire, smoke them if you got them.
Okay. Let's go direct fire. So the only units I've got spotted right now are those Panzers in the town hex, aren't they? Oh, and up north. Okay.
You do have 1 unit that can actually shoot. Headquarters unit has a 0 attack factor. Machine guns, rifles. Holy crap! You've got some 47mm anti-tank guns in there. Oh shit! Oh man, that's okay. Those are my toughest units, and we don't want to have a boring stream. Yeah, there's a nasty fight coming here. AA fire. You have 13mm, basically Belgian 50 cals, in there, and you've got a 47mm anti-tank gun in there, anti-tank battery. So A-class weapons against armored targets at less than half range, actually within 2 hexes, double. Point-blank armor-piercing weapon fired against armor-piercing target. You get to, this 47mm fires at 12. This is an AA-class weapon. Within half of its range, it keeps its normal attack factor. It against armored targets. It stays at 8. So you have 20. 12 plus 8 is 20. This is probably the best shot you will ever get in this game. A company of German tanks just rolled right up on you, like right in front of the muzzles of your 47mm. So
it's my best shot. I probably should take it.
oh, yeah. Because trust me, that's a Stuka strike. I promise you that. That and maybe these guys are your 2 most dangerous points on from my perspective.
Yeah.
Now you have to add 1 to the roll because I do have cover in wooden buildings.
Yep.
Now, what we're looking at here is whether or not you want to. Well, you have 20 total attack factors. How many of those tanks do you want to attack? Jen brought me in 2 SS dice. Jen, there are no SS units on this table. I don't need SS dice. Trust me, these Belgians are in enough trouble. Rasmus says, always shoot. Or only shoot. Only shot that always misses the shot never taken. This is true, Rasmus, except in Panzerleader, we have this thing called spotting and hidden units, and if you take a shot, you reveal your position. There are lots of times it's a bad idea to take a shot. It was fun to blow up a truck, but that machine gun fire in the south pretty much just gave these guys that bridge. Because now I'm going to be able to Stuka bomb the hell out of these guys, blow them off the map. Their rear and left flank is now more or less secure. I have to worry about these guys down here a little, but not really. These guys are now free to run over this ridge, cross that ford, and take that hex. They were already kind of free to do that, but their situation just got a lot more secure. That's what I was saying. I kind of went ahead and moved that battery of trucks down there because I was like, I'm probably going to lose 1. That's fine. Because it gives me an objective X in a weird kind of way. Panzerleader can get very chessy, if that's a word. If not, I just made it up. As far as forcing enemies to do certain things and take shots that maybe they shouldn't have. Wasn't necessarily a bad thing, because again, he was already kind of bypassed. And again, we don't want the stream to get stupid boring here. But, yeah, there's always, in Panzerleader, it's always well on the one hand and well on the other kind of thing. Here's a shot you definitely want to take. There's no question on this one. You have 20 total points. That's 6 doubles to 12, plus 8 for the 13mm equals 12, plus 8 equals 20. Divided by, it depends on how many you want to attack.
I'm going to go for the 2 Panzer IVs, if I can.
You can. There's an old saying in Panzerleader, always go for 4 to 1. If you look at the chart, it's pretty lethal. It's pretty lethal. When you get to 4 to 1, it jumps. The lethality goes through the roof. Now, doesn't mean that you want to do that. Again, you're not going to stop this German attack overall. So it might be good to pin down 2 Mark IVs as opposed to kill one and let the other one blow the crap out of you next turn. I'm probably going to blow the crap out of that hex anyway by calling in a Stuka strike. But that uses up a Stuka strike, and I only have 6 of them. And I wanted to save at least some of them for the French. You see what I'm saying? There's always a, This is why Panzerleader games take 12 hours, because people stop and think, you are a friggin' brigade or regimental commander in as close to a war game as it will really take you. Without actually smelling gunpowder, Panzerleader will do it. So it's up to you whether or not you want to attack either 1 or 2 of those Mark IVs. There's a really good case to make for either of them. The only thing to remember,
I think I'll go for the 2.
You have to add 1 to your roll, because I am in towns.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Make 1d10. He's attacking, so now you have 20 versus 10. So it's a 2 to 1 attack instead of a 4 to 1 attack. The good news is the results get applied against both targets. You have to add 1 to the roll.
A 1.
A 1 becomes a 2. He survived. Yeah, the difference between the lethality. So there's modifiers here and there's modifiers here. Obviously, here's columns 1 through 6. So the lethality between a 2-to-1 attack is 1 in 6. The lethality against a 4-to-1 attack is 5 out of 6. So like I was saying, always if you're out to kill somebody, always go for 4-to-1. Because you're up against shooting at targets in the building or in streets or whatever, you have to add 1 to the roll. Your chance to kill him was technically 0, because you have to add 1, and even if you roll a 1, it becomes a 2. But again, you've now dispersed or pinned down. Oops, wrong button. Go away. You've now pinned down both platoons. I only have 2 of them. 2 platoons of Mark IVs, which in this game are probably going to be my most powerful units, or at least my most useful units. As far as giving away your position goes, I was already adjacent to you, so it didn't matter. You were already spotted. So that whole earlier debate about do you really want to give away your position, that ship had sailed. If you were ever going to shoot, it's now. Now, here comes the next question. We'll see what he does in his movement phase. Okay, so any other fire there in the town?
I have the mortar. Might take a shot at the... no, it's not worth it. Then I'll spot my mortar and that'll be bad. So no more shooting. No.
There are infantry in... Yeah, the mortar's going to be a little more effective against infantry. You have infantry in the open, literally stomping up that road in column.
Oh, that's right. I would have to roll to spot those, wouldn't I? I would have to.
No, because they're out of the woods.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. They're in the open. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep. In that case, I'll fire at them with the mortar and that rifle platoon.
Okay, mortar here. I got that part. What rifle platoon were you talking about?
Trying to read there. The one in 4111.
Okay, 4111.
The sort of bottom of the town there.
Yeah, he does not have line of sight.
No, the one below. Sorry.
He definitely doesn't have line of sight, because he's shooting through these friendly town hexes.
Okay, cool.
Now it depends on what infantry unit you're shooting at here. Hold on. This guy's line of sight begins... No, he doesn't really have a line of sight on anything. The only thing he can even come close to seeing is
I've got other plans.
Okay. This guy is blocked by the town hex that the Mark IVs are sitting in.
Yep.
I don't know if you want to give away any positions, but you have some long-range machine gun and light mortar fire that you might want to take out of 4406 there. They'd only be 1 point apiece.
I think I'll save that. I don't think I'll give away those positions.
Yeah. Spoilers. There's no real good math for that. So in my newly designed whatchamacallit chart, M is double. Okay, you're firing mortars direct. In other words, not indirect, but direct. Again, we're not using indirect fire in this game. So he's legal to shoot because he is on the immediate elevation hex behind the slope. He's firing at units that are far enough back away from the slope. He sees past the town. It's all legal. He gets to fire direct fire. In other words, this mortar crew sees the target that it's firing at. There are no radios involved. So because of that, that mortar gets doubled to a 6. So it's 6 versus everything in that stack. Is this the hex you're shooting at? This one right here, this lead one?
Yep, that one there.
Okay, cool. So the thing about mortars and certain howitzer weapons, not all howitzer weapons, but certain howitzer weapons they're not that powerful until you realize they affect everything in the hex. So thick hexes like this become prime targets for these kinds of attacks. So you've got a total of 6 points because everything in there is unarmored. 6 versus 4 is 1 to 2. Go ahead and make a roll.
Four.
No effect. 6 versus 10. You know, those pioneers. Those are much tougher troops, and it's a bigger platoon. But it still comes out to 1 to 2. Make a roll.
3.
Also no effect. Now you have 6 versus that truck. That's 6 to 1. Yeah, I think that truck is pretty much toast.
5.
The table, that's a kill. There's no modifiers. That's a total kill. So some more trucks are burning. Oh no, all my trucks. Thank you for helping resolve my stacking issue. Now I can cram more infantry in there. Alright, these little smoke columns, by the way, have no effect on gameplay. They're just to mark where units were destroyed. As opposed to, if we ever get to it, wreck counters. These are armored units that were destroyed in a hex. They do have a game effect, and we'll get to that when we get to it. But these ones that are just little smoke puffs, they're just there to show what happened. No worries there. And hooray, I now see some orders. Alright, we saw that. Alright, what else is going on? Any more fire?
No more shooting. I think I'm pretty good for shooting.
Cool. We go down here to the south. Probably no more shoot. Well, this guy's already fired. He took opportunity to fire.
Yep.
Does anyone else? I don't think anybody else can do anything down here.
Nope, they're just basically sitting where they are. I've got some movement in the north, but otherwise...
Oh yeah, we got all kinds of movement going on. Okay, so we conclude the attack phase. We now go to the movement phase. The only units that can't move are the ones that fired. Alright, so movement phase.
Okay, so this includes assaults, doesn't it? It's a...
Yes, you move to get to the assault, and technically the assault takes place at the very end of your turn. But
okay.
This is if you want to go ahead and launch cat attacks, just let me know. In fact,
Okay,
I'm
so
gonna get some assault markers here ready because I'm assuming there's some coming. Okay. All right, cool.
So the cavalry are going to move across towards those pinned down vehicles.
Okay. Go for it. All right. I'm assuming you're going into 4201.
Yep, with the infantry. And then assault with the infantry there.
That's the plan.
Yes.
Fortunately, it's not going to happen that way. Because this time the Germans are ready for you. At least a little. Okay, so these are going to be the two assaults that happen at the end of the turn. The Germans do get something to add to the argument. They're going to go ahead and do that now.
Yeah, I've got some more assaults later on, but...
Okay, but as you move, I have to take opportunity fire as you move. If you kind of, to use the old chess term, take your finger off the piece, and I did not declare opportunity fire, I can't change my mind later. If it's a snap decision. These guys in these tank turrets they have to make up their mind and shoot now or forever hold their peace. So yes, at least as far as these guys go, I'm going to take this opportunity fire now. I can only shoot at the cavalry. I cannot shoot at these infantry because they're technically not moving. So we're going to go ahead and launch that attack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, he doubles. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 total units against 6. That gives me 2 to 1. I have to add 1 to my roll. I'm going for it because I want to break up that attack. I'm attacking all 3. I have to add 1 to my roll.
Yep.
I roll a 3, which becomes a 4. All 3 of those cavalry platoons are dispersed, and that charge does not happen. The infantry units in the south can still attack during the close assault phase, but that cavalry assault is not happening. Too many 20mm flat guns. So everyone who's seen Private Ryan, that flat gun that chews up all those poor paratroopers trying to attack that tiger, there's literally heads exploding off of shoulders. 1, 2, 3, 15 of those same guns just fired into a bunch of cavalry. About 150 cavalry. That just happened. So yeah, those cavalry are not, they're hating life at the moment. Okay, other movement further in the south. Or I should say any other movement anywhere.
Yep, so I've got some assaults in the town hexes.
I was afraid of this. I was afraid of.
So rifle maxim and then the rifles.
1, 2, 3.
Yep.
Okay, this is what I was afraid of. Notice what he's doing here, guys. He dropped anti-tank and AA fire into those lead 2 platoons, or Zugs, whatever you want to call it, of Mark IVs. pin them down, and then he's going to launch a cat attack into that same hex. And by using the turn sequence properly, like he's doing here, he's really maximizing his chance of doing some pretty bad damage. Then again, he's attacking 15 tanks in a town hex. So this is the Belgian edition. This is the Belgian edition of Saving Private Ryan. He's literally attacking disorganized German tanks in the town hex with infantry platoons. We have a total of 8 points. No movement was required. You never expended a quarter of your movement, so I cannot attack you with any kind of opportunity fire, because there's tons of opportunity fire waiting for you, but it was just too fast. Also, I don't really have line of sight. I'm blocked by the town hex that those Mark IVs are actually sitting in. We're looking at 8 total points versus 16. It is a 1-2 attack. You get to subtract 2 from your roll because it's a cat attack. You have to add 1 to your roll because it's a town hex. So it's a net add 1. Oh, sorry, net subtract 1 off your roll. 1d6.
Okay. A 2. So
a
it goes
2
down to a 1.
becomes a 1. Sort of. Alright, I almost want to make a copy of this chart, make a small version of it, and bring it down here. Because you're attacking a hex that is partially dispersed. Some weird stuff happens here. Okay.
Okay.
Which is good news for you. Bad news for me. Okay. I told you this game was stacked against the Germans. Alright, so here's a miniaturized version of the chart so we can kind of see what's going on at the same time. We had a cat attack go into this hex. He rolled a natural 2, right? Is that what you said?
Yep. Oh, yeah, natural 2, yep.
So he's on this column here. Let me get my little marker out. He's on this column here, and he rolled a natural 2. Okay, subtract 1 from the die roll, because -2 for cat attack, +1 for woods, for town, equals a 1. That means that this Mark III is pinned. Or dispersed, whatever you want to call it. The Panzer term is dispersed, but same idea. Alright. However, there's some bad news. At least for Heinz Guderian here. Okay, 2 of those units in that hex were already dispersed. It's -1 when attacking a dispersed unit. So it's -1 for being dispersed, -2 for cat attack, +1 for town. It's a total of -3 when you're applying that 2 against those Mark IIs. Yeah, you see what's coming. Okay, now that 2 becomes a net 0. Again, -3 + 1 equals double dispersal. Double dispersal does what against dispersed units? You son of a bitch. You just destroyed 10 of my tanks. My best 10 tanks. That is how you do it. You put point blank direct fire into a target, and then you close assault them with pretty reasonable infantry units. Now, I probably should stop saying these kind of things. We'll get to German wreck counters when we get to them. Guess what? We just got to them. We have 2 armored units that were destroyed in that hex. Armored units that are destroyed. Not batteries, not infantry units, not cavalry. Anytime an armored unit is destroyed in Panzer, it creates what's called a wreck counter. A wreck counter has no effect on anything, except it counts as a unit for stacking purposes. You can literally clog up a hex with burning wrecks, just like you can on a miniature table. You can eventually just get where the board is non-negotiable, or where certain parts of the board are almost non-negotiable. This is one of the corrections that we made in subsequent editions of Panzer. You can always put at least 1 counter in a hex, no matter how many wreck counters are in there, but for right now, for game purposes, damn it, I just fixed that. Right now, for game purposes, this stack is fully loaded. Because there's 2 wreck counters and a pinned down unit of tanks in there. That's 1, 2, 3. That unit is fully. I can't send in reinforcements into that hex. There's too much burning wreckage in there. All the streets are clogged up with burning Mark IVs, and Mark III's trying to figure out which way is up. So that was very well done. That deserves an assault marker. Okay. We're kind of going out of sequence here, but as long as we've done the assault, we'll say that nothing can now move in the town hexes again. Assaults have to take place after movement. Let's go ahead and wrap things up here in the north. Alright, so up here in the north, we have a total of 6 points versus 12 points. So it's 1-2. Yep, 1 to 2.
3.
3 becomes a 1. I think you just destroyed two more platoons of tanks. Oh my god, this is getting crazy.
Did I?
I think you did. These guys are not in woods. They're in the open. So that 3 becomes a 0. And that's double dispersal. Alright, I'm like really not paying attention here, but that's fine. It's a fun stream, everybody. Limburger told us to kill some Germans, and we're definitely doing that. I also did very poorly on my rally check up there, so this is not completely unexpected. Luckily, my German reinforcements are arriving. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Okay, so we head down to the south. Anything going on down here in the south?
No, the south's pretty
Okay,
abandoned. Cool. I have those tank destroyers, but I think I'll.
Tell you what, the Belgians are putting up a hell of a fight here so far, that's for sure.
Yeah, to move those tank destroyers would be to destroy them. So, actually, no, they can move. You know what I'm going to do with them? I'm going to move them to 4408. It's a little risky, but so they're going to go sort of up the road there, up the sort of
Yep. Oh, get these guys off the table.
Yep. And that should be my turn.
Cool. Alright, I'll go ahead and start another phase here super fast. Yeah, that second turn went a lot faster than the first turn.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Turn 3 for the Germans. We're going to go ahead and start off with airstrikes. Yes, I'm calling in my airstrikes now. Dun, 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 dun.
Just need that stupid noise on a soundboard or something.
Soundboard, right? Like a little bit of a shriek. Hell no, man, that's all I need. Is it worth it? Yes, it's worth it, because... Alright, so I'm going to send in these 2 Stukas to bomb this hex right here. Now, you do have an anti-aircraft unit in there. Do you want to use anti-aircraft? That's AA. Let me zoom in a little bit. You want to use AA, anti-aircraft fire, to try and fend them off. It would be opportunity fire. You wouldn't get to shoot it later on in your turn.
Better.
Okay. It's 8 points.
Yeah, I think I need to use.
It's literally its job. Yeah. It did damn well against German tanks, but that's actually not its job. Its job is to shoot down aircraft, and there are now aircraft coming in really seriously. Let me remember how I did this versus flying aircraft. AA within 1 to 4 hexes is normal. Okay, so you got 8 total points in there. 8 total points. Your odds are not great, but roll a d6 to see what you can do. X is killed, D is dispersed, means that the aircraft still gets to drop its bombs, but then it has to leave, and NE is no effect.
I got a 3.
A 3 on the 8 to 11 column is no effect. Alright, cool.
Yep.
Now, where do I want to put all these guys? I only have 6. Again, that's pretty light for a lot of games, but again, we're not trying to turn this into a German route. Then again, already got 4 platoons of German burning tanks. I'm not worried too much about this turning into a German route. So far, the Germans took a pretty good kick in the teeth. What am I looking at here? Normal. Okay, cool. I'm just making sure nothing doubles or half or anything like that. Alright. Oof, boy, these airstrikes go fast. They go real fast. Okay. Time to make a decision. Stop goofing around. I'm gonna stick with my original plan here. I want to secure that flank at least a little bit. I'm probably being a little paranoid about those southern guys, but what am I gonna do? Alright, cool. Alright, those are my airstrikes. I've gone ahead and committed them. Let's go ahead and resolve them. This is the only German really airstrikes we have in the game. It's time to damn it. Actually, you know what? The hell with that. Changed my mind. Alright, cool. Now the airstrikes are committed. I'm not going to be paranoid about the south.
Okay.
The south doesn't killing these 2 units doesn't give me an objective hex. I kind of already have it. It's just their position isn't totally secure. Up here, killing these 2 guys, that's the only real defense you have up here. After that, you've got empty wagons, and then there's 2 objective hexes immediately after that. So I'm trying to get rid of those guys. Alright, cool. So there's no anti-aircraft guns up here. The Belgian army didn't really have very much. According to their order of battle, I've already kind of given them a little too many. Again, game design. So we will go ahead and chuck a dice down. I have 40 total points, 20 and 20. Nothing divides, nothing adds. That unit is spotted. Obviously, I have active enemy units right next to them. You have a total of 10 defense factors in there. It's 4 to 1. I have to add 1 to the die roll for woods. Oh shit. Sorry. That is a 2. That is 2 units destroyed.
Ouch.
Yeah, it's fun throwing in airstrikes, but then you're like, I mean, ask the Israelis in the Arab-Israeli wars, but then you're like, oh, I only get so many, and when they're gone, they're gone. And when they miss, it is infuriating. Let me not say that, because they're already dropping some more. Okay, I'm not too worried about it if some of these miss, because these are very, very tough building hexes I have to dig these guys out of. And I have a lot of direct fire I can put down on these guys immediately after this, so I'm not going to be too worried if this doesn't work. But for now, because that town is about to get hit hella hard. You got your pound of flesh in my 2 Mark IVs. It's payback time. Okay, so first of all, we are looking at... Let's see here. I'll do these 2 northern ones first. In this hex, we're looking at 3 for the headquarters... Well, first of all, it's a concrete building hex. So the color in the building hex is gray instead of this wood color. So not only do I have to add 1, but whatever your total defense factor winds up being, I have to add 5 to that. That's to account for the concrete and stone brick buildings and whatever. These are the urban rules drawn out of Arab-Israeli wars, in case anyone's wondering. This is not, whatchamacallit. This is not native Panzer leader. Native Panzer leader, the building hexes are broken. They're all considered armor targets. So the best thing to do, according to native Panzer leader, to clear infantry out of town hexes is to send in tanks. Because that makes sense. Again, Panzer leader.
That's the worst thing to do.
Yeah, Panzer leader makes a lot of mistakes. But again, 1974, one of the first games of its kind. And they quickly fixed that in the next edition, 1977's Arab-Israeli Wars. Okay, so I got 40 total points, and I'm going to drop in. How much of that shit do I want to engage? I'm going to engage. I'm going to try and pin these guys down for an imminent cat attack. So I'm going to go for a pin. It's 4 for the machine gun platoon, 6 for the rifle. That is 10. Plus 5 for the building is 15. 15 versus 40 is, sadly for me, 2 to 1. And I roll a 1, even though that would have been a kill, except you're in buildings. And that building, these units are now dispersed. I did not bomb the headquarters unit, so that the headquarters unit is unaffected. Down in the south, it's a little better. That's another concrete building hex, but I got a total of 6 and 2 is 8, plus 5 is 13. 13 versus 40 is 3 to 1. Barely. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I have to add, I've added the 5 for concrete buildings, and we're adding 1 to this roll for towns. 4 becomes a 5. Those guys are also dispersed. Perfect. They didn't kill anything, but that's okay. Like a lot of war games, sometimes in Panzer Leader, it's all about the... Oh, crap. Yeah, it's all about the kill. That's a 2 to 1 attack, because these flat guns were also in there. That 4 becomes a 5 on the 2 to 1 column. They're still pinned down. I forgot that unit was also in there. And that's it for my Stukas, I'm sorry to say. Now we go to my direct fire phase. Direct fire phase, to move quickly forward. I have not as much as I thought I had, but I do have some. This is within half range. Oh, I don't have line of sight on that. I have line of sight on some of it. Okay, cool. So that's going to be 6 plus 6 is 12. However, everything in there gets the plus 5 bonus. So it's 12 versus 7 against the against the Vickers machine guns. That's a 2. That becomes a 3. He's destroyed. The anti-tank gun. Oh crap, that's a 1. That becomes a 2. He's destroyed. And then 12 versus 6 plus 5 is 11. That's 1 to 1. Add 1 to the die roll. Subtract 1 from the die roll for being dispersed. That is a 4. No new effect. So they're still pinned down. You now have that spotted, and you now have that spotted. To be fair, I'll go ahead and put a quick spotted counter on those 2. Boom and boom. Alright, that's going to be it for direct fire down here, because I've got other things I want to do up here. Actually, that's not true. I got a grand total of 6 points here in machine gun fire. They're going to fire straight south, and they're going to try and kill somebody there in the south. Because they can't really move. So 6 versus 4 plus 5 is 9. Oh god, that's terrible. 1 to 2 odds. I can't do anything new, so no, he's not going to shoot. I might move him later. All this stuff has no targets right now, so they're all going to stay put for the moment. No fire down here, they're going to stay put for the moment. Okay, back up here, it's time for... Obviously, these guys up here could not fire because they all took opportunity fire. But now they've moved. I'm sorry, now it's now into movement phase, so now they get to move half. Certain armored vehicles have the turreted mobility rule. If they fire, they can move half their distance. That's if you're a good army, like the Germans in 1940, and that's if you're an armored fighting vehicle with a turret. So things like Stugs, I don't care how elite you are, you never get this. But these are turreted AFEs, so they can now move half if they want. And they're going to go ahead and move for sure. These guys are all still pinned, so nobody can shoot at them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to take that X. Because... what? Go ahead.
What about those tank destroyers? when you just start your move?
They have a range of 3.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're right. Sorry.
Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's as far as they can go. Because they have to slow down going down that slope. I don't want to bail out with everything because these cavalry guys are eventually going to rally. And when they do, I want to leave a force to deal with them at least a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. God damn it, what happened to all my tanks? You blew them all up. I can't believe I've lost 4 friggin' units of vehicles already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They'll hide out in there for now. I'm probably being too paranoid about those stupid cavalry units there. You also have these infantry guns spotted, or these mortars spotted. Okay, let's continue with movement. I'll get these Stukas out of here because now they're just cluttering up the map. 1, 2. We're going to close assault down into that town. Oops.
Okay.
1,
Nice.
2. I don't think there's any opportunity fire to take against them.
All I can see is tank destroyers, but I don't think that's
Tank
worth.
destroyers don't have line of sight.
I don't think it's.
Yeah, there's no scraping fire in Panzer Leader. You could have taken
Okay.
opportunity fire in Hex 4108, to be fair. I just don't know if it's worth it, because it's extreme range, 3 hexes.
No, I don't think.
It's divided because you're an A-class weapon firing against soft targets. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no, I don't think it's worth it.
to be honest and to be fair and to be clear, in 4108 it was legal. I had spent more than a quarter of my movement rate, and I was in the open, and you did have a line of sight momentarily. We're flanking around to the north a little bit here to try and what's the word? To try and get rid of some of these opportunity fire markers. To try and avoid from some of this opportunity fire out of the south here. Crap, I have 2 more rifle platoons in here. So this truck, if you can unload if you spend half of your movement or less, if it's a light weapon, which a 37mm is a light weapon. You will go ahead and unload. I know I'm going kind of fast here, guys, but the stream's been going for 2.5 hours. I'm trying to get through at least 3 turns.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
So yeah, that pad gun is now in the woods hex and unloaded. Get these trucks out of the way a little bit. Damn, my armor got used up fast. Alright, last but not least, down here, Germans. Oh, those are empty trucks. Get down behind that tree line. Alright, cool. So that will be... actually, he's going to stay up here. Still behind the tree line. Last but not least... Oh, shit. I drew this map very badly. 1, 2, 3, 4... Oh my god. Well, he's not going to make it this turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's literally stuck there. because he can't
Always.
move. Yeah, he has
He'd
to
be
keep.
skirting the edge of that hill.
He's literally driving sideways, trying not to tip the tank over, because he can't advance into these stream hexes. What I should have done is gone around here and just. In fact, that's what these guys are gonna do. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, 1, 2, 3. Sorry. Literally nothing can hurt us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's got to stop there. I thought I was going to reach that objective hex this turn. Now the French are probably going to grab it. Damn it. Oh well. Yeah, and this is from like a 30-year Panzer Leader veteran. If this was going to be your first Panzer Leader game, how well do you think the Germans would be doing right now? Attacking,
Yeah,
like
I see what you mean.
A set-piece assault against a prepared position in Panzer Leader is even if it's relatively weak, is pretty hard. It is not easy. Okay, so that will wrap up German turn 2, or German turn 3. I will try to rally that platoon of Mark IIIs. With the 4, he does rally, barely. And, oh, what am I talking about? I have a freaking assault to do. Shit, I have 2 assaults to do.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
the
sorry.
pioneers there.
Yeah, assaults always take place at the very end of a turn. Alright, so, tanks can never assault, vehicles can never assault. Vehicles, especially armored vehicles, have a little thing they call an overrun, but I have no overruns. Overruns are very hard to do. Close assaults, however, happen all the time. I have a total of 5 points in there versus 6. 3 is 9. 4 is 13. Plus 5 for the concrete buildings is 18. That sounds absurd. 5 against 18? Risking me? Are you nuts? Yeah, actually, kind of. This attack was supposed to be a lot easier than this. Also, another whole wave of infantry closing up behind it. But for now, this is what we've got. 5 versus 18. It doesn't quite exceed 1 to 4, so it's still legal. However, I do get to subtract 2, because it is a cat attack. I have to add 1 for buildings. I get to subtract another 1, however, for all those dispersed units. And I do have pioneers. Pioneers, for people who may not know, are German combat engineers. We're coming in with flamethrowers, satchel charges, Bangalore torpedoes, God knows what else. Whenever you have a close assault and you are doing it with any kind of engineer unit, that's the big E there in the unit symbol, you automatically jump 1 entire odds column. So my 1 to 4, let me make sure of that. Yeah, the 1 to 4 becomes a 1 to 3. It's 5, 9, 12, 18. Yeah, so it's only 5 versus 18. It's a relatively weak attack, but it's surprisingly not weak. So it's 1 to 3. Turn on the webcam this time, because this is for a damn. Yeah, so you can see I have to roll a 1. Again, I get to subtract 2 from a lot of that. Damn it! Throwing dice all over the floor. I rolled a 3. So a 3 becomes a 2 against the dispersed unit. He's okay. Wait a minute. Yes. So, hold on. I get to subtract 2 for the cat attack, subtract 1 for dispersed unit, plus 1 for town. It's a net subtract 2. So, yeah, that attack failed. That attack failed. Nothing new was done there. The units that were pinned are still pinned. The unit that's still in good order is still in good order. A 2 would have been nice. But again, that attack is criminally underpowered right now. We're going to fix that shortly. But for now, that attack is in pretty bad shape. Over here, I have a total of 8 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Going in against rifles in a concrete building, so it's 11. 8 versus 11, that's 1 to 2. Subtract net 1 from the die roll. So we roll that, and oh shit, damn it, that one, wrong fucking button. Sorry about that. That becomes a 2. All right, so a 2 becomes a 1. I don't think anything new happened there either. on 1 to 2, the 2 becomes a 1, he's still just regular dispersed. If you're dispersed and the enemy scores a D against you, you're just still dispersed. You have to get a double D to kill you. Except, wait a minute, a 2 becomes a 0 because you're already dispersed. Okay, I take that back, he is destroyed. So it's subtract 2 for the cat attack, subtract 1 for being dispersed, add 1 for the building. It's a net subtract 2.
Yep. Cool. Cool. It's not too bad. Could have been much worse. So.
And again, the way we do sort of a Oriskany edition Panzer Leader is close assaults within stacking limits get to occupy the hex. That's if Bruce Lee is watching this later on, he's gonna shit a chicken when he hears that. He lost the game because he wasn't able to do that. That is gospel chapter and verse Panzer Leader, that you are not allowed to occupy the hex. I have seen way too many games fail because of that rule. So the way we do it is we just say, look, you're assaulting the hex, you're already in the hex, you don't retreat out of the hex at the end of a successful assault. It just seems to make a lot more sense. But in all seriousness, that is a house rule. Okay, so that will conclude German turn 3. We go over to Belgian turn 3.
Cool.
Or I should say Allied turn 3, because in the movement phase, those French troops arrive.
That's going to be fun. Okay, for now, I think I'll just stick with 8. It's quite a large number for the... Okay. So I'm just looking at combining some firepower here, but I think I'm better off assaulting, to be honest. So
often that's the case.
Yeah, I think the only firing that I want to do is 3 platoons of the tank destroyers there into that Panzer 1.
Oh my god, I totally forgot about him. I deserve that. I so deserve that. 18 versus 4. That's 4 to 1. Go for it. I so deserve that.
A 4.
I'm literally just not paying attention. That's not even, well, this is how this happens historically and tactically, but many people don't realize, no, that's a risk me is not friggin' paying attention. How hard were you biting your tongue on that one? You're like, are you sure you don't want to move 4201?
Oh no, I imagine you'd left it there as like a supporting thing or something.
No, I was just being really stupid. Oh wait, it was in 42.
Oh okay, no, I thought you had some sort of plan with it. You're gonna rush up the trucks or something.
I wish I could say I did, but that is me just literally being retarded. Ah, cool. Those stupid little those T-13s got to do something. Belgian tanks do get to kill somebody once in a while, or tank destroyers. Oh my god, I don't believe I just did that. Okay, tell you what, let's work our way from north to south. So as part of the quote-unquote fire phase, these cavalry units get to rally. They're considered morale C, and they're considered infantry. They rally only on a 1 or a 2. So a 1 or a 2 for each one.
Oh, okay. So it's 1, 2, 3 dice. None of them.
Alright. They are effectively killed, because I'm going to just annihilate them in turn 2. Turn 4. So cool. No fire, no fire, no fire. We've done a little bit of fire. Let's continue south. Any more fire down here? There is a little bit of a street battle going on in that town.
Yeah. I think I'm better off assaulting than firing, to be honest.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and continue to go down. Any fire going on? I don't think there's... Well... No, because he's in tree cover, so you technically can't see him yet.
Yep. Yes, so no fire there.
Alright.
No.
We will then go back to the top of the map and start over with movement. They're pinned, they can't move. Any of these wagons or trucks moving?
Yep.
Rifle?
Yeah, they'll just sort of run away.
Okay, it may already be too late for that.
Yeah.
So, okay, these trucks, I remember I said no vehicle can ever go through a green hex site. You can if you're on a road. So, he backs up there. He's fine. He backs up. It depends on where you want to go and whether or not he can run away or not. So how do those two trucks, for instance, want to move?
No, it would be just straight south. The only real way I can really go, isn't it?
Okay, so they started off here. They actually can't go straight south, but if they go here, the trucks can never enter a stream hex.
Oh, that's right. Yep, that's right. Okay. I'll just leave them where they are in that case. I'm not too really worried about them.
Rifle platoon, though T-13s can't move because they fired and they're not turreted AFVs. Also, they're Belgians. They're not, Panzer Waffe troops. Usually, turreted mobility are Americans, British, mid-war, late war, Germans, not in Poland, and Soviets late war. And then, of course, most stuff like Israelis, like in 1967 or whatever.
Okay.
Above average armored troops.
Have I got the infantry there in 4106 spotted?
Infantry in 4106. I don't think so.
Sorry, 4108. I think it might be.
Okay, yeah. But from who? From these guys?
From the two rifle platoons near the trucks.
Technically, yes. We've already passed the fire phase, but go ahead and take
a
shot.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
It would be extended movement, and it would give away your position. I'm really regretting not giving the Germans some artillery now. I've been worried about that all night. But this is why the game is kind of shaking out this way.
Okay.
So there's no reason for you really not to, but it would be a 1-to-4 attack. It would be 2 1s, so 2. Against an 8, it would be 1-to-4.
Yep. A 3.
I don't think. You know what? You literally have to roll a 0 because there's no modifiers. There's no reason for you to take that shot.
Oh, okay.
So so we can say that you didn't do that, and thus your position is still hidden, and you can move if you want. Because there's literally no earthly reason for you to do that.
Okay, cool. The mortar.
Okay.
The mortar's going to fire into the town hex there with your 3 units, your 3 platoons in it.
Oh, cool. All right, so that is 6 because you're. Oh, you can't. You can't see that hex. There is. Okay, let me draw a line of sight marker here between us.
Even with my headquarters there, that's not.
Well, we're not doing indirect fire.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Yep.
Yeah. And this building hex, right behind it, is blocking your view. The building hex that your guys are still pinned down in, because I'm directly behind it, it blocks your position. Even though you're elevated, is why you can't see it. Also, spoiler alert, that would be a terrible attack. It would be 3 versus. Oh, I'm sorry. It would be 6 because it doubles. It would be direct fire. 6 versus 8. That's already 1-to-2. Oh wait. That's 8 at 6 versus 13 because I now own those churches and those brick buildings. So you would get 3 attacks at like 1-to-3. Add 1 to the die roll. You wouldn't do anything. It'd be literally mathematically pointless. In fact, 1-to-3, adding 1 to the die roll, even if you rolled a 1, it's no attack. Yeah, early war weapons are not the best.
In that case, I don't think the mortar's got anything to shoot at.
Wanted to shoot at something, they're already spotted, so who cares? There's this rifle platoon on the open road. There's an empty truck I left out here for reasons surpassing understanding.
Yeah, I might as well go for that platoon on the open road there.
Alright, so it's a 1-to-2 odds. A 1 or a 2 will disperse them. 6 versus 8 is 1-to-2.
Yeah, a 6, no.
No effect. That's paint. What are you doing? Alright. Up to you. Oh no, I forgot. You have mighty engineer bicycle troops or motorcycle troops. Belgian motorcycles. It's a Belgian chopper gang. Watch out. There's some badasses. They drive by you on their Harleys and throw loaves of bread at you or something.
I know the Belgians use dog sleds for their machine guns. I'm not sure what they did with their motorcycles, but and the tiny little dog sleds. I think I'll use those for an assault later. Actually, yeah, I'll save those.
So Rasmus just lost power in his house. Damn. I hope you got power back.
Oh, okay.
Or if you don't, your battery doesn't die. You can go ahead and log off if you want, dude. If you're gonna, waste up your battery on your laptop, I'm assuming. Yeah, we've had a lot of brownouts as well. Early war weapons not being the best is what makes it fun. Yeah. So early war versus late war, at least in a game like Panzer Leader. Again, it's one of those games that, because it doesn't shackle itself to like a miniature or like a 10 millimeter, 50 millimeter, 20 millimeter. Not everybody can play on a tennis court or whatever with like a table that would be big enough to actually encompass the distances and geometries that these kind of battles were really fought at. But because you're playing on these 150 meter hexes, you can actually have the values that actually show you how far artillery can reach versus rifle fire can reach. And now the way the different groups of the different arms of the service can interact or not interact really becomes more clear, and you get a much more never mind history, just much more tactically realistic results. So yes, as the war goes on, the 37 millimeters become 50 millimeters, become 75s, become 88s, become 128s. The guns get bigger and bigger and bigger. Hooray, hooray, hooray. The armor gets thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker. So a 37 millimeter shooting at a Mark II is a lot like an 88 shooting at a Sherman. It's our late war jumbo or a Stalin II or something. That delta never really changes that much as far as the lethality goes. What changes out of all proportion, early war to late war, and you only see it in games, again, Panzer Leader is not the only one, there's a million games like this, but in games like this is the range. Range is what kills you in combat. It's not how hard the bullet hits you. If you get hit by a bullet in 1940, you're still dead. It's the range that that weapon will shoot at. And in 1940, look at these ranges: 2, 4, 2, 3. Again, in late war, these are all 15s and 20s. And holy crap, does that change the game. That absolutely radically changes the game. In late war, World War II, Panzer Leader, it's firepower management. Cover, concealment, and praying to God. In early war, to Rasmus's point, it's maneuver. The ranges are so short, maneuver becomes much more free and open. And you get battles, like this battle that we're doing right now would take, how many hexes are we looking at? It would take that many bolt action tables to hold it. And thousands of miniatures or whatever. But we got guys that are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, flames of war tables away from the next guy or whatever. This is the distance. This is the real volume of battle space that you're dealing with here. These tanks could not do this in 1944. Because there would be one battery of American 90 millimeters up here, or German 88s, or British 17 pounders, or who knows what. Soviet 85s, and that would be it. That's why like I was saying before, a lot of players prefer early war, because you have a lot more movement. I didn't really show that with this rather blunt, again, I'm just trying to make for a fun stream, but this rather blunt German frontal assault on this fortified Belgian town. This is not the kind of thing that happened. The armored cars or a couple tanks would go up there and hit that town, spot it, and then you would call in. I don't think I have any of those. I think I do have some of those units prepared. I just don't have them included in this game. You would have a pile of this stuff off board. Yes, I do have it. Here we go. 47th Artillery Regiment. You'd have stuff like this by the literal truckload. 2 batteries of 105s. Units like this can hit anything on the table. And they hit it really hard. And once they hit like soft targets, they double and they affect everything in the hex. So it'll be 26, hitting any of your units at 4 to 1. And if one of these batteries hits a stack of your units, they attack them all at 4 to 1. I just start Finger of God erasing, stacks of Belgian infantry. And every single Panzer division had at least a full regiment of this stuff. That would be like 12 counters of this stuff. So, again, the problem with that is that you have to call in a hex ahead of time. You have to write down on a sheet of paper. It really slow. We'd only be on like turn 1 at this point, maybe turn 2, instead of getting ready to start turn 4. And it would make for kind of a bogged down stream. Again, also, it puts a lot of pressure on someone who's just learning the game, and it becomes a bit of an issue. Also, it makes the Germans really overpowered. But that's why, historically, things like this didn't happen. It wasn't the Stukas, it was the artillery. And again, Panzer Leader is one of those games that sort of shows you, doesn't tell you, it shows you that, oh man, there's a reason why artillery always trumps air power in, real combined arms combat like this. At least in this era. Nowadays, probably not. But back in the day, yeah, artillery. Airstrikes are fun. They come in, they make a big mess, and then they're gone. Artillery is there all day. It never runs out of ammo. It's always off the table. The enemy can't even shoot back at it. It can hit anything on the table. As long as you on the table can see it, you just have to wait one turn. That can be tough when trying to shoot at a mobile enemy, but when you're fixed in place trying to hold an objective X, you're not going anywhere. That's what artillery's made for. But, yeah, that was a very long answer to Rasmus's comment on early war weapons. Okay, so if Dylan is still awake, is there any more fire you want to do, or are we going to go to we're working on your movement now.
Yep.
Okay.
I think that's all my... sorry, I want to do some assaults, yeah.
Yeah, you have the assault here on this house.
Rifle with the engineers.
Hey, engineers!
Yeah, rifle with the engineers and the motorcycles.
Cool. Alright, so we got a grand total of 3 points versus 8. That's 1 to 3. Because again, you always round in favor of the defender. It's 1 to 3. However, you do have engineers in there, so that means that you bump up to 1 to 2. The next most favorable odds column. You just get that column for free because you have engineers. Yeah, there's no movement involved, so I get no opportunity to fire. It's 1 to 2 now, because it's 3 versus 8, which is 1 to 3 becomes 1 to 2 with engineers. Subtract net 1 from the die roll. It's 2 for the cat attack and 1 for my town, so it's a net subtract 1.
Okay. 1.
Oh so no! 1 becomes a 0 on 1 to 2. That might be a kill. Please tell me that's not a kill. A 0 on 1 to 2 is a double dispersal. Whew. I was going to say, don't tell me they just wiped out a whole platoon of infantry. German infantry with defense of 8, man. They are hardcore. They are damn tough to kill. So, last looks. Oh, you know what we have to do to finish up your movement phase? Bring in your French. I almost forgot.
Yes, I almost forgot about that.
Let me get this turn sequence out of the way here. Alright, cool. I thought you would get a kick out of playing the French cavalry in southern Belgium fighting Blucher's Prussians. I mean Guderian's Panzers. Same basic idea, except
I
not
do
so
like
much.
French. I play French in bolt action, and they're ridiculously OP. So hopefully
Really?
they're the same in this. Oh yeah, French OP, stacked machine guns and fucking grenade launchers in your squads. They're nasty.
Certain French units, like the French tanks at Juneville, I was showing these off before. They're really rare, but if you come across like one of de Gaulle's regiments that actually had some of these tanks in large numbers, they can be scary. They do suffer some penalties because, again, they have that one-man turret rule, which means they don't get split move and fire. They're not allowed to stack in less than 2 units in a hex because they deploy by. There's a whole bunch of stuff to it, but they're pretty good. You better have some artillery or Stukas for them because your German tanks ain't doing shit. Not against that armor. I've got an image of a wrecked. I don't know if it was wrecked or abandoned, but it was pretty much on the side of the road, a Char B. And the Germans finally said, okay, this is after the war, or after the campaign. The Germans said, okay, we have to find a weakness in this thing. So they get a truckload, literally a truck, an Opel Blitz truck, full of their standard, at the time, 37 and 5 I'm sorry, 3.7 and 5 centimeter anti-tank ammunition, and they got 2 guns, a 37 and a 50. And they shot at this thing from like every possible angle. It was just sitting there. They used it as a target.
Yep.
And the picture has like literally over 100 or 200 bullet holes in it, or whatever, and they never could get through that armor. They were like, maybe we shot it from the back. No, we have to develop tactics against this thing. Shoot it in the side. Nope. Shoot it in the wheels. Nope. Shoot it in the front, under the turret, back of the turret. The stupid picture has these little red circles around every single shell strike, and it's like the damn tank has the measles. The entire tank is nothing but red dots, and they never did get through it. Okay, so you can come in on either of these 2 roads.
That crazy armor.
Crazy for the time. Again, it's only got the what is it got? It's got a 6, and again, some of that is because the damn driver is blind, or whatever, the commander is blind, so that number is artificially reduced. But even a 6, I mean, it's also huge. So anything that's big in Panzerleader, rather than, oh, it's a big gigantic ogre tank, it gets all kinds of killer defense. Once a tank gets above a certain size, Panzerleader starts taking defense points off. Best example, KV versus KV2. Same armor plating, but for some reason the KV2's armor or defense rating is 2 less. It's because the tank is 15 feet tall. Every German tank gunner all the way back to Berlin can see you. Anyway, sorry, I keep interrupting. Okay, so let's bring on these French.
No, you're right. Okay, so I'll have the cuirassiers come on from near Weizenbach.
Yep.
I'm not sure how to say that. French cavalry will come on there and head along the road up to Radelange, or whatever it's called.
Okay, they get double movement as long as they follow the road. They clippity-clop along on column formation. Well, if they're going to get road movement, they can only be 2 in a stack, so we'll do something like that. It's
okay,
legal, super legal. All right.
And the rest of them will just follow. So the the bicyclists and the...
Oh, the bicyclists. Pedal, pedal, pedal. Ding, 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 ding. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have seen... My brother Ben and I used to play Panzer Blitz all the time. We had a Panzer Blitz Barbarossa game, Soviet Union, 1941. I had a German unit in a gully, and it was how many units could get off the table in a certain amount of time. It was a breakthrough scenario, and the scenario required like 20, and I had 19, I had 19, I had 19. On the German movement phase on turn 10, a German bicycle platoon in a gully, so the Soviets couldn't see it. He literally like bicycled off the southern end of the map, and that gave me the win. And I was like, this, never make fun of bicycle platoons again. So I played thousands of games of Panzerleader. There's been like 2 where a bicycle platoon was decisive. Every once in a while, a bicycle platoon, it spikes for the win. Okay, your motorized dragoons have pretty much a bunch of infantry, and pretty much 1 company of infantry and some very, very light tankettes.
Okay, they're gonna move into the town at Weizenbach. They're gonna sort of take up positions around the town.
We'll put the headquarters in back, and the Hotchkiss anti-tank gun. I guess we'll put them in the south because they got a concrete building hex in the south, and there are German tanks threatening from the south. Okay.
Yeah, and then their armored support will just. I'll just leave them on the road somewhere. Oh, yeah.
They're pretty fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, actually, I know what I'll do.
Yep.
I'll put them in. I'll put them in 5813 in that woods hex back there.
Okay.
Almost like a little ambush position. So 3 of them in that one, and then one of them can race down and take the objective. I know it's probably not the best idea, but it's...
At least make me fight for it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, don't give me that objective X completely for free. Okay, then we have some heavier tanks. Oh, here's the tank battle. 5th Armored Car Regiment. So here's 15th Dragoons. I'm talking about Hotchkiss 35s like that, the heavy tanks, but yeah, by comparison.
Yeah. Yeah, they'll come on from the road in the south there, and
right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They can reach that objective hex if they want.
they'll dig it around that objective hex.
1. Again, double movement rate as long as you're on a road. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They can't enter that hex and use the road movement rate. So,
Yep.
All right.
That's right. I'll just have 2 of them there, and then the armored cars will race to the forward and see if they can.
Oh, those guys have a movement rate of 16. Good grief. They can go God knows where. They can practically teleport. Yeah. Where do you want them? As long as they stay on a road. They get off. Well, we haven't been using that. Never mind. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. On that case, 54-18 then.
That's kind of in the open, but okay. Is that the... Oops. Shit. Is that the hex you meant?
Oh, actually, yeah, no, probably 56-19 is probably better. 56-19.
Give me a second to find it. 56...
Oh, sorry, it's on
the
woods on the hill there.
That's not a bad Overwatch position. Okay, 1 small battery of 25mm anti-tank guns and trucks.
They'll go into 55-16, just above those 2 Hotchkisses.
And motorcycles.
Oh, with the anti-tank guns.
French choppers.
One of the coolest uniforms of the French army. It's like a big motorcycle, double-breasted motorcycle jacket and a cool racing helmet.
Sounds like something you'd see on like the Rocketeer movie or something.
Oh, it looks so sci-fi looking. It's hilarious.
Well, that's the end of my chances of taking that objective hex anytime soon. That's cool. This was only going to be a partial game. That's all good. Alright, cool. So we will, I don't think we ever tried to rally this machine gun squad or machine gun section and this rifle platoon. So it's 1 to 2.
I'll do that now.
Okay. First for the machine guns.
Double sixes. So.
Okay, he never made it. All right, awesome. Did you want to maybe do one more turn, and then because I know we don't
we can do one more and then
we don't want to. Also, we don't want to take up the chat or whatever the Beast of War window all night here, or the on tabletop window all night here. All right, this will be a short turn for the Germans. I'll get through this pretty quick because I don't think I'm going to take too many more objective hexes. So, direct fire. Let's take care of this infantry, or this cavalry up north. The grand total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 versus 6, 2 to 1. Add 1 for woods, subtract 1 for dispersed units. That was a 2. That stays a 2. That's a double dispersal on all 3. All 3 are toast. That was not too unexpected.
Yeah.
So long.
Yeah, pretty much.
Whatchamacallit cavalry. I think that's going to be about it for my direct fire. Oh no, I'm going to do these clowns as well. Okay. Yeah. So how long is your trip today? You said you were heading back to. You said you were heading back today. They're reopening after the virus or whatever. Or...
Yeah, heading back to in Brisbane there. It's about an hour and a half. It's not too bad.
Okay, cool.
All right. The train ride is fine.
I got a little bit. Oh wait, no, I don't have any more direct fire in the south here because everything that was there is dead. Okay, the no more direct fire here. These 2 units don't have any more targets, believe it or not. Everything here is behind that first row of hexes. Nothing really new down here. Alright, cool. So I'll leave the rest of that alone. We go to movement base. 1, 2, These guys can move half. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can't hurt me. 5. I mean, you might close assault me with cavalry. I would welcome the attempt. These Stukas are used up. Clean up the map a little bit. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, except they don't have a movement rate of 5. They have a movement rate of 4 because they use half their movement rate. There we go. He'll stop there. Split move and fire rule, you get half of your movement after you fire, and half of 8 is 4, and it costs 3 to move into a slow peg. So pay attention to numbers, Mr. Risky. All right, these tanks are going to pull out. Across the road, across the bridge. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now they're on a road. 5. 6, 7. Ooh, I might get counterattacked there. I'll stay right there. I might get counterattacked there. He'll stay right there for now. Alright. And then just to kind of wrap this up super fast. Damn it, I want at least one objective hex up here in this town. I want to crack this town for the freaking price I paid for it. I can only move, remember, 1 infantry unit into that hex because there are 2 rec counters in there. So I cannot just jam up that hex with all kinds of stuff. This guy's going to finally get under Belgian mortar fire. He's going to get into that town hex. These 2 are going to run in here, try and do something. And, okay, I think that'll be about it for our movement right at the moment. I can't see him, even though he can't attack me, because, again, there's no scraping fire in Panzer Leader. So this flat gun cannot hit these guys, because they're scraping past that bottom hex, unfortunately, for me. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and launch some cat attacks now, at least here in the center. Alright, I have a grand total of 5, 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 total points. 15 because I have no artillery support. Because I hate my life. You have 4 plus 3 is 7 plus 6 is 13 plus 5 is 18. It's still only 1 to 2. Becomes 1 to 1 with whatchamacallit. Becomes 1 to 1 with engineers in there. Subtract 2 from the roll for cat attack. Subtract 3 from the roll in some cases for dispersed units. Add 1 for whatchamacallit. For being in a town hex. Okay, and that is a 3, which, hold on, we're talking about 1 to 1, subtract 1. Are you kidding me? 1 to 1, subtract 1. I rolled a 3, that becomes a 2. Yeah, that hex is still technically in your control. I killed the 2
nice.
Units. Yeah, taking urban hexes is a bloodbath. This is the Stalingrad game. The only guys left in there is your Belgian colonel with a pistol and a couple of his radio guys, but technically speaking, you still own that hex. Now, when this gets really frustrating is if you have reserves as the Belgian player and you rush up in your turn, more guys. And then the German player starts weeping into his beer because he's like, oh my god, I have to assault that hex again. Technically, I have to assault that hex again anyway to get those command troops out of there, but they're not much of a threat. But if we were going to play another turn, this is when you move more troops into that objective hex. But for now, there are 2 destroyed units in there, non-armored. And I will wrap up German movement in the south and close out the stream. Oh no, sorry, then we're going to do a Belgian turn, sorry. I don't want to steal your turn. Okay, it's up to you. Are you going to take any opportunity fire while I'm coming up that hill? You can shoot through a green hexite once you're adjacent.
Yeah, I might as well do it.
I mean, otherwise I'm just going to close assault. All right,
Yeah,
so you got
yeah,
6 versus 8. It's 1 to 2. Add 1 to the die roll. You literally have to roll a 1.
I can roll a 2, not a 1.
2 becomes a 3, which on 1 to 2 doesn't do anything. Just for fun, I'll go ahead and launch a close assault. It's 4 versus 10. That is 1 to 3. There's no engineers in there, so it's just subtract 1.
Yep.
I keep forgetting to do this. 3 subtract 1 is 2. At 1 to 3, I think that's no effect. 4 versus 10 is, yeah. This is going to be the kind of like,
on the defensive
long, like those hour-long firefights that's kind of simmer that we see in the movies or whatever, like it dense in the woods. These are 40 or 50 guys on each side, kind of hiding behind trees. They're going to be taking pot shots at each other for hours until somebody can call in a mortar strike or a howitzer strike or an air strike or something, or somebody just gets lucky. The Germans have a slight advantage in defense. You have a slight advantage in firepower because you have maximum machine guns in there. But that's almost like a little sideshow bolt action battle that's going to be simmering until turn 8 or something. You know, no big deal there.
Yeah.
Finish up my movement here. These guys, now that they've taken their opportunity fire, these guys are going to be safe to come back around and deploy. Although, again, they're anti-tank guns. They're the wrong kind of guns for this job. It's not really the point. The point is just to kind of secure this German southern wing a little bit.
Yep. Yep.
Alright, down here, we have the Great Tank Battle. That's probably not going to happen now because the French are too strong. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That would be kind of fun. I think the French would actually win that. They have numbers. Their tanks are a little inferior compared to these Mark IIIs, but this is when I would call in some artillery if I had them, but that's alright. I think that's it for my movement, because I'm going through this turn super fast. Get these damn Stukas out of here. Stop teasing me with Stukas that I know I don't have anymore. Oh, again, just to be super quick and super thorough, these guys, now that they have no more line of sight on anything, the battle's kind of advanced past them, they re-limber. Oh my god, that was the wrong button. And a truck that starts off in the hex with its passenger unit can load and move half if it is smaller than an 88. So both of these definitely apply. Or 88 or 25 pounder, I think is the actual benchmark. Pretty much less than medium artillery. So that's a half track. He can now move 5. Empty trucks out here. And okay, that wraps me up for movement. I don't have anything pinned or dispersed. So we go over to Belgian turn 4, and that's not quite halfway through the game. Actually, we got about 1 turn more than I thought we were going to get. And then we'll go ahead and close out the stream, because everybody's got other stuff to do. So, awesome. Alright, we start with your direct fire, if any.
Okay, I've got some direct fire. I'm going to fire into the... so I've got the guys in the southernmost town hex.
Okay.
They're going to fire into the guys right next to them.
Okay, to the north or to the northeast?
To the northeast.
Okay, yeah, that's a much easier hex to attack because... Oh, I did have a unit to rally in there. These guys need a 1, 2, or a 3. Webcam time, so I keep forgetting that. 3, they do rally. Alright, cool.
Nice.
Alright, awesome. So you got 3 points versus 8, so that's 1 to 3. You have to add 1. Depends on who you attack. You can attack those bicycles. There's literally, if you're just going to engage in a firefight, there's literally no point in shooting at the rifles, unless you assaulted them.
Yeah.
But you can't peck at those bicycles, guys, because everyone hates somebody out riding a bicycle. We have a total of 3 points. You're within range. It's 1 to 1. 3 versus 2 is 1 to 1. That's a regular building hex, so I don't get any +5. You do have to add 1 to your die roll, though. So a 1 or a 2 will disperse me on 1 to 1. Not that I have this chart memorized or anything.
Okay. A 1.
A 1 becomes a 2 on the 1 to 1 table, which is a dispersal.
Nice.
Okay. I don't think the mortars have any targets, because all my guys are in woods or behind building hexes.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much. All my cavalry and my French are all in sort of good positions anyway. I don't think the only thing I'd really do with my cavalry is move them into the woods. But fire-wise, I haven't got any more shooting to do.
Okay, so cavalry are considered infantry units. I know that's weird to hear from to say to a Napoleonics player, but they're not vehicles. So cavalry can enter a stream hex. There is a roll for them to get back out of it, because they have to literally climb out of a small ravine. So
okay, yeah.
That's the rule out of Panzerleader. So one.
Okay, cool.
Do they want to? You want to move up some more units and maybe, so like this wagon could go in here and deploy these anti-tank guns.
Yeah, and the bicycles and the wagon both into the town.
Yeah, so the wagon uses half of his movement. He can then unload on the spot because it's less than an 88, obviously. It's a 25 millimeter. And the bicycles have no problem moving in there. That hex is now fully loaded. So when a unit is being carried by a carrier unit, it counts as 1 for stacking purposes. As soon as you unload, it now counts as 2. So unloading densely packed troops with a stacking limit of 3 can become tricky. And again, that's kind of by design. You can't just drive up with a maximum unloaded or the maximum stacked infantry column and everybody jump out of the trucks at once. You can, but you're literally pushing trucks off into the ditch as you're doing that, which sometimes people do. Trucks never count toward victory points. They never count as combat units. Lots of people just blatantly sacrifice trucks that way. If nothing else, it cleans up the map. But yeah, you're legal and you're fine now with those 25 millimeters in that little village behind that bridge. Okay, those last 2 platoons of cavalry, are they going to jump into the woods as well, or in the south?
Yeah, they'll jump into the woods.
Southeast, I should say. Cool. Okay, and again, we're not going to get to it, but normally this is where you start, here's when you have to start making some decisions about unloading units. You can unload and then move the trucks into the woods and then unload the other one. That way you never actually exceed 3 stacking points in a hex.
Yeah,
here's a way to do it.
That's probably what I do.
Yeah, you would just get ready to defend this town. And then, down here is a nasty little scrap that would take. I'm not suggesting that we do it, because it would take a while to get to it. It would be another 2 or 3 turns to really see what would happen here. But down here, there's a little tiny little tank battle getting ready to start up. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 15 French tanks plus a bunch of armored cars and tankettes against 20 German tanks and some armored cars. So that's a nice little flames of war table happening. Usually 4 hexes is a rough 15 millimeter table, like 6x4. So if you kind of imagine like a rectangle, kind of going like that, like this is like a 6. If you actually do the math, this is like a 6x4 flames of war table, which when these guys all kind of pile in there is what you would see.
Okay.
But
That's cool.
yeah, I don't think we're gonna get to that today. And which is fine with me because I could actually lose that battle. If I did actually win it, I wouldn't win it with enough strength to actually take that objective hex. So this is where I really regret not putting at least 2 batteries of 105s in here for the Germans. But uh-oh, what did I do? Everyone's vanished. That's because I moved the map to the top of the table. Hold on. The armies have all disappeared. Where did everybody go? Send the 2 back, please. Everybody should reappear in a second. There they are. Poof. So, that was a rather badly designed and badly executed on my part beginning of a Panzerleader game. If this was an actual game, I have totally lost this game, without a shadow of a doubt. I have taken 2... Well, I haven't even taken it yet. God bless you. I'm about to take a second objective hex here, so I really have 2. I don't know if I'm going to take any more. I might take this one in the south, but again, the victory conditions demanded that I take all 5. Obviously, the objectives are insanely balanced against the Germans. That's by design, because the way this 1st Panzer Division was actually set up, if we look back at our research, like what they should have with them, we're not even close. Where are these guys? My GW1s. You know, these guys would have been really helpful. What's another good one that I could have used? Oh, yeah, the entire Panzer Artillery Regiment. 4 105s, 2 batteries of 150s. Check out those defense factors. Now, this is an old Panzerleader, so those numbers are going to be a little inflated, the 40 and the 60. What really that would be is 13 and 20. But even at 13 and 20, you basically divide it by 3. You still wind up with some really heavy-duty stuff, especially since those 13...
That's crazy numbers.
And that 20 would be affecting everything in the hex. And it has a range of 36. It can reach across the entire table. And it's not off the table. You can never even attack it. 9 more platoons of engineers. Again, this is if you put the whole 1st Panzer Division on the table, which I've done before. It makes for a fun game. You're at it for a whole weekend. But for the leading echelon of an attack, what the Germans were supposed to do is run forward, hit that town, bypass it, and then with some headquarters units and so on behind it, start calling in this artillery. 4 times 20 is 80. No, I'm sorry, 4 times 13 and 2 times 20. I don't even know what that is, but that number is hitting each one of your hexes and killing everything in the hex. It's literally finger of God. You point to the map, everything's dead. You point to the map, everything's dead. It's one turn, and that's how the Blitzkrieg works. They go forward, they hit resistance, they don't try to drive the tanks down Central Street like I did. They hit that town, they bypass it. And while the artillery is hammering the infantry into the dirt behind them, they're running forward and they're engaging those French tanks in full strength. I pretty much gave the Germans half of what their 1st Panzer Brigade had. I gave them pretty much 1 battalion. They're supposed to have 2 of these times 2. So everything on the table times 2. That's 1st Panzer Regiment. Oh, double that again for 2nd Panzer Regiment. So the Germans are at 1/4 tank strength. But this is one of those times where if you play it strictly by the history, the game almost becomes not that fun. So it's almost like the case where, okay, you're going to do a battle, you find the battle, how big do you draw this box? How much of 1st Panzer Division do you put on the table at once? And that's what determines whether or not you have a fun game that can still be historically accurate. Is kind of the whole gist of that. I mean, to be fair, 5th French DLC is not even close to full strength. Again, we'd be here till Christmas, so we're not trying to do the whole thing. But like most battles, you just draw a certain shaped or a certain sized rectangle on your map, and to keep your game manageable, keep it fun. Balance the force disparities against reciprocal disparities in victory conditions, and try to have fun. That's how you do it.
Cool.
So
yeah, no, that makes complete sense. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the scenario wasn't that well designed, but that's okay. If it was well designed, it would be, like warning Dylan before the stream started. I apologize in advance. I'm going to curb stomp you. I'm going to curb stomp you. I didn't really curb stomp him. 4 platoons of my tanks are burning. He pretty much kicked my teeth in when I came tried to attack this town. I did get in there with my Stukas. I wiped out his cavalry in the north, and I pretty much outflanked him in the south. But now the French have arrived, and I think I'm pretty much stalled in the south. So with the tools he had in hand, which wasn't much, these poor Belgians, they did not have a whole lot of firepower on their side. But given what he had, he made the best use of terrain, flexible defense, in-depth defense, multiple echelon defense. He didn't try to offer battle in places where it was clearly hopeless, focused on where he could do damage, and yeah, especially for his first game of Panzer Leader, did really well. So, now the question of the day. What do you think so far of Panzer Leader, Mr. Dillon?
I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, it's very cool. I play a lot of Hearts of Iron 4, which is grand tactical scale World War II.
That's kind of what this is, yeah, a command tactical, scale tactical,
yeah.
you want to call it. Yeah.
And it's interesting, like, when I'm putting my divisions together, and then you see how all these elements work alongside one another. So it's like the choice between armored or motorized recon really comes into it in here, and that sort of thing. Those light tanks really aren't as useful as you think they are. So yeah, I liked it a lot.
German Mark IIs, Panzerkampfwagen 2s are fast. They're great if the enemy has artillery on the table. And you flank around like these assholes way up here to the north. You go way the hell up here, nobody's ever going to catch them. You go, you're like swanning around, almost like a helicopter, man, wherever the hell you want. You get next to enemy artillery that's back here in woods. You watch them fire once from a covered position up here. So say the enemy has artillery here. And this guy goes dun, 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 dun. He's going to take a little position down here. The next fire mission he fires, peekaboo, I saw that.
Yep.
He gets on the radio and boom. That's, and again, that is 30 bolt action tables away. It's
yeah.
We
it's definitely a new scale for me. It's actually a lot of fun.
We were talking about it at one of the bolt action boot camps. We're talking about 25 pounders, or maybe it was Flames of War. And I was like, yeah, I've actually done the math, and should 25 pounders be on the table? I'm like, well, I'll tell you what, I'll take this 25 pounder miniature. He actually had one on a little base. I'm gonna walk to the courthouse pub up there on the hill. It's like 700 feet away or something. I'm gonna set this up on my table, and then I'll call you on a cell phone and I'll tell you what I roll. And if you actually do the math, that's actually the kind of table, or I'll go across the river and I'll fire across the Coleraine River and land here in the studio. So put it on the table if you want. I mean, weird things do happen as far as, artillery being overrun by light tanks. Again, that's something that these kind of light tanks are good at. They're good at overrunning targets that the enemy thought was safe. Spotting headquarters units. So whenever you knock out a headquarters unit, this is kind of a house rule, but what we do is I say, okay, that unit now makes a save on a 4 up. It keeps its morale on a 1 through a 3. Whatever its morale was, A, B, C, or D, it now drops 1 level. And you can ask Bruce Lee and Damon what happens when a German when a German platoon, when a German battalion loses its commander like that. They paralyzed 1 whole wing of my defense at Gold Beach with that. Ost Battalion is their battalion commander. They're already morale D. Half of them are Ukrainians. They're not even Germans. They get blown up, and I failed the roll. They went from a D to an E, and that means that they don't rally at all. And they literally just became targets, and it was just literally the unit fell apart, and British tanks just started mopping them up. And they eventually got the win. That was a 10-hour game, by the way. We played through all 10 turns. It took 10 hours. It was even bigger than this.
I'm sorry. I remember that because I watched it and then I went to sleep and then woke up again. And it was still going.
We were still there. That's right. I remember now. Oh my God, you guys are still playing? It's literally tomorrow. We're like, dude, Panzer Leader. Speaking of which, you have now joined the elite ranks of Panzer Leader. Congratulations.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, again, everybody, thanks very much for sticking with us. Get in and have some. Oh no, another Panzer leader convert. That's right. That's right. Rasmus says it was fun to watch. Thanks very much. Thanks because science teacher. Thanks everybody on Twitch, on YouTube, on tabletop.com. We here on the Sitrep podcast channel definitely appreciate your support. Sitrep podcast definitely appreciates the cooperation with On Tabletop. Radagast6, I didn't even know you were in the stream, but thanks very much for swinging by. We're going to go ahead and log off because it's 8:30 here. I don't even want to know what it is in the UK. It's going to be like, what, 1 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning? Anybody in the UK who's still watching us, log off now. Go home, get some sleep. You've got to get somewhere because it's already halfway through Monday morning where you're at. Right, Damon? All right. Not Damon. I'm sorry, Dylan. Damn, I called you by
Oh, yeah. It's about 10:30.
Okay, everybody. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off the stream. Once again, I super appreciate everybody. I'm going to go ahead and take off. Sorry being quiet painting. No worries at all, right? I guess I'm just, I'm glad that, everybody was here.
Yeah.
Again, I know this isn't really the kind of game that we often see on tabletop, but I'm not trying to convert anybody away from miniatures. No matter what, a Panzer leader table will never look as good as a good Flames of War table or a bolt action table. It will never, there's no hobby in it, there's no painting. I mean, technically I drew this map or whatever, but it's not the same kind of, hobby, obviously. But all that trust, all that brain real estate, all that effort, all that whatever, that goes into the hobby, the miniatures, the painting, the building, the cleaning off flash or whatever, all that gets put into pure game design and historical research and tactics. So this is almost like, I don't want to say hobby without the hobby, but gaming without the hobby. It's hobby at risk, and he says Radagast, right. Hey, it's me and a lot of others. This is a huge wing of the hobby that people do really get into. There's not there's not as many of us. We don't have as many channels on the internet because, again, this isn't as much fun to look at as miniatures. Completely, admittedly, but at the same time, I'm a miniature gamer and a hex encounter gamer. I enjoy switching between the two, and this is the kind of game that shows you how these kinds of battles really work, how they fit together. They don't have the visual appeal or the hobby element of a miniature game, but they do have certain tactical, historical, and game design elements that really no miniature game really has. It's just literally like what kind of hobby you enjoy. I literally enjoy both, and I happily switch from one to the other and back again. A hybrid gamer, if you want to call it that. I've been doing a lot more of this kind lately because this is the kind that you can do over the internet very easily. In between, distances and COVID-19 and everything else like that, a lot of people are gaming on the web. So this is it's just a lot easier for web gaming. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and log off the stream. Thanks very much, everybody, for your support. Thanks again for the cooperation on tabletop.com. And thanks again, Dylan, for being a good sport and playing the Belgians and the French on May 10th, 1940. Although you did really well. I'm not gonna commiserate with you too much. You blew up both platoons of my Mark IVs. I'm not gonna,
Jim and I talked for about half an hour beforehand. He's like, "Those Mark IVs, it's the best thing I've got. You never see those things." It's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. So that's the first thing I'm gonna shoot at. Yeah. Those Mark IVs, they never got to fire, but those Mark IVs. I know I've closed the stream 8 times now, but super fast. Let me go ahead and oops. Those Mark IVs, they have a 5, and within 4 hexes, they double to 8. They double to 10. Those things are infantry killers, and that's what they were designed for, man. They're turreted assault guns. They're not even really tanks. I mean, they're tanks, but they're doctrine-wise, they're more like flexible assault guns. And for cleaning people out of buildings, and I screwed it up. I should have gone forward with my Mark IIIs, which are better tanks, but on this particular scenario, not as useful. Go forward with the Mark III, spot with the Mark IIIs. These guys could be up to 8 hexes away, 4 hexes away, and still get their double attack fire, and just blown those Belgian infantry clean out of that town, and just have that be the end of it. But I kind of knew I was in a little bit of trouble as soon as Dylan pulled out of that forward hex. That forward wood hex, I was like, uh-oh. He's going to make me go into the town and fight point blank. by refusing to defend, basically giving me that forward town hex. He's almost like luring me into a trap, which, because that's an objective hex, I almost am helpless but to step into. I probably should have called in my Stukas first, but hey, you know what? It's a fun stream, it's a fun game, and first time player, you don't want to get too crazy with using every friggin' trick in the book. And the worst thing that a lot of players do is they convince somebody, they talk to somebody, they cajole somebody into playing a new game, and because they're new, they don't really know all the rules, and then the person that's teaching the game just stomps the shit out of the new player. And then surprise, surprise, he never wants to play again. You can't do that. You gotta, be cool when you're teaching somebody a new game. But I didn't have to be that cool because Dylan, honestly, I'm not just saying this, put up a good defense with very limited resources, and totally won this game. There's no way the Germans are taking all 5 hexes in 10 turns. Some of that is his play. Admittedly, some of that is the scenario design. I should have some artillery. I've said that 100 times now, but... And for the 19th time, I'm going to close out the stream. So this time I promise everybody, take it easy, Radagast. Take it easy because science teacher, Rasmus, thanks very much. Dylan played his share of that kind of games. Yeah, that's true. There are no babes in the woods when it comes to wargaming. We all know the basics. When the enemy comes with really big tanks, run away. Attack them from the sides, attack them from the rear. All right, guys, take it easy. Thanks for your support. Stay safe, stay healthy. And I will be in touch with everybody later on this week. Thanks again, everybody, and take care.